today. They pull me up. Tryna hide from the camera. I ain't going outside today. Couldn't find that tech, so I'm drinking on egg today. I'ma put up in style. We gon' do a drive-by in the rain. I'ma take it to trial. Pray the Lord I beat the case. That man that be calling, I don't do no talk, so get the fuck out of my face. Gotta take in a chopper with $100,000 up in the race. You know I ain't sleeping, you know that I'm with it. I shoot him right up in his face. 3 say that I'm tripping, you know that I'm dripping. I'm wrapped this around today. I just bought a brand new watch from God, I ain't put it on yet. I don't care about no bitch, I ain't giving no shit. Spend it all on my homies. I could put on my son from my car to my house, everything I own it. When they come to that money, you know I ain't staying, I be on it. I just got a pet monkey, can't start on a tiger, but really don't want it. My son don't like it. He say that we beefing, you know I won't fight him. My clip full of thunder, you know that I strike. Wanna join NBA, go catch you a body. Free Kevin Gates is murder for hire. Double G gang on the front of my title. Got rid of my Glock and about me a right. Tryna hide from the camera. I ain't going outside today. Couldn't find that tech, so I'm drinking on egg today. I'ma put up in style. We gon' do a drive-by in the rain. I'ma take it to trial. Pray the Lord I beat the case. I jump out at your house, I ain't shoot from the cone. Ben bought me a bitch, but I really don't want. I don't do no capping, I keep it 100. Right now I'm recording with 10,000 on. He say he won't smoke, but I know he don't want. Shoot him and this bitch and I up on his home. You know how I'm feeling, I don't gotta say it. Face every problem, all by my loan. Tryna hide from the camera. I ain't going outside today. Couldn't find that tech, so I'm drinking on egg today. I'ma put up in style. We gon' do a drive-by in the rain. I'ma take it to trial. Pray the Lord I beat the case. Yeah. I ain't going outside today. They pull me up. Tryna hide from the camera. I ain't going outside today. Couldn't find that tech, so I'm drinking on egg today. I'ma put up in style. We gon' do a drive-by in the rain. I'ma take it to trial. Pray the Lord I beat the case. That man that be calling, I don't do no talk, so get the fuck out of my face. Gotta take in a chopper with $100,000 up in the race. You know I ain't sleeping, you know that I'm with it. I shoot him right up in his face. 3 say that I'm tripping, you know that I'm dripping. I'm wrapped this around today. I just bought a brand new watch from God, I ain't put it on yet. I don't care about no bitch, I ain't giving no shit. Spend it all on my homies. I could put on my son from my car to my house, everything I own it. When they come to that money, you know I ain't staying, I be on it. I just got a pet monkey, can't start on a tiger, but really don't want it. My son don't like it. He say that we beefing, you know I won't fight him. My clip full of thunder, you know that I strike. Wanna join NBA, go catch you a body. Free Kevin Gates is murder for hire. Double G gang on the front of my title. Got rid of my Glock and about me a right. Tryna hide from the camera. I ain't going outside today. Couldn't find that tech, so I'm drinking on egg today. I'ma put up in style. We gon' do a drive-by in the rain. I'ma take it to trial. Pray the Lord I beat the case. I jump out at your house, I ain't shoot from the cone. Ben bought me a bitch, but I really don't want. I don't do no capping, I keep it 100. Right now I'm recording with 10,000 on. He say he won't smoke, but I know he don't want. Shoot him and this bitch and I up on his home. You know how I'm feeling, I don't gotta say it. Face every problem, all by my loan. Tryna hide from the camera. I ain't going outside today. Couldn't find that tech, so I'm drinking on egg today. I'ma put up in style. We gon' do a drive-by in the rain. I'ma take it to trial. Pray the Lord I beat the case. Yeah. I ain't going outside today. They pull me up. Tryna hide from the camera. I ain't going outside today. Couldn't find that tech, so I'm drinking on egg today. I'ma put up in style. We gon' do a drive-by in the rain. I'ma take it to trial. Pray the Lord I beat the case. That man that be calling, I don't do no talk, so get the fuck out of my face. Gotta take in a chopper with $100,000 up in the race. You know I ain't sleeping, you know that I'm with it. I shoot him right up in his face. 3 say that I'm tripping, you know that I'm dripping. I'm wrapped this around today. I just bought a brand new watch from God, I ain't put it on yet. I don't care about no bitch, I ain't giving no drinking on act today. I'ma pull up and style. We gon' do a drive-by in the rain. I'ma take it to trial. Pray the Lord I beat the case. I jump out at your house, I ain't shoot from the cone. Ben bought me a bitch, but I really don't want. I don't do no capping, I keep it 100. Right now I'm recording with 10,000 on. He say he won't smoke, but I know he don't want. Shoot him and this bitch and I up on his home. You know how I'm feeling, I don't gotta say it. Face every problem, all by my loan. Tryna hide from the camera. I ain't going outside today. Couldn't find that tech. So I'm drinking on egg today. I'ma pull up and style. We gon' do a drive-by in the rain. I'ma take it to trial. Pray the Lord I beat the case. Yeah.
What you doing?
Watching some tape.
Who you listening to?
This is NBA Youngboy. This is Will Howard put me on this guy. You ever heard of him? Listen to this. Watch film a lot faster. He was right. Got a little something to it.
Do you like it?
NBA Youngboy, check it out. You ever heard of him?
And welcome to Off the Dome Sports. My name is Sean Militello. I'm joined with my co-host, Nick. And we also have our special guest, Mr. Bob Rose of Athlon Sports in the Bayou Blitz podcast. He covers Saints, and he also covers the Pitt Panthers with Athlon Sports as well, if that's correct, right, Bob?
Yeah, for now, until someone pays me more.
Absolutely, man. It's always a pleasure to have you on, Bob. And, first and foremost, I wanted to get this out the way, and I just wanted to have like a moment's silence for Kylin Lacey, LSU wide receiver, was going into the draft and had some real unfortunate offense, and I just wanted to offer my condolences to his family and the families that were affected in the wreck that he caused as well. So I wanted my condolences to those people. It's a very sad situation, and it sucks that this happened. So I just wanted to offer my condolences to Kylin Lacey and his family and everybody that was involved in that wreck not too far long ago. But anyways, let's get straight into it. We brought Bob on here for a reason, because we got a news bomb. Was it yesterday or the day before? It was yesterday, wasn't it?
Friday, I think, yeah.
That was on Friday. I was on my way home from work, and a friend of mine messaged me and said, "What's this about?" I don't know. Fuck if I know. Pull over and read this. So that's exactly what I did. And Sean, you said you were taking a nap. What the fuck did I wake up to? I mean,
well, I woke up, and then I ended up going to Walmart with Carly, to do some grocery shopping. And I was like, man, I missed a whole bunch of notifications. I have 8 different people texting me about it. And then, I just see it on my screen. Derek Carr threatens to be out due to shoulder injury for the 2025 season, which immediately when I saw that and saw the tagline threatens, I thought it was immediately fishy to me. And Rappaport reported it. So let's get into it, Bob, because we believe that you probably have the gist of everything what's going on. Give us the scoop on this. What's exactly going on with Derek Carr?
Well, the story is that Carr is dealing with a throwing shoulder injury. We do not know the extent of the injury yet, but it looks like he's going to have surgery that will likely, if it doesn't completely derail his 2025-26 season, looks like he'll miss most of it. And I know a lot of Saints fans, especially the Carr haters, find the timing highly suspicious. I find it interesting, but we're also hearing, and we believe, that the Saints knew about this issue, and had talked with Derek Carr about this issue even before free agency, and that'll cause a lot of Saints fans, especially the Carr haters, to say, "Well, why did they renegotiate his contract then? Why are they paying him X amount for this season?" Yeah, guys, and I think the three of us talked about this issue the last time we were all together. The Saints had to do this just to create some salary cap space to bring in free agents. Derek Carr was good. Yeah, Derek Carr was going to get paid whether or not he plays in 2025. Now, if the injury happened as a non-football injury, some kind of violation of his personal clause in a contract, then perhaps the money can be voided. But if that were the case, we'd already heard about it. So those of you that are hoping that the Saints are going to get away from Derek Carr unscathed and without having to shell out a penny, ain't going to happen, folks. This is an injury that occurred, we believe, during the previous season of football. And if you recall, 2 years ago, Carr was dealing with some shoulder issues down the stretch of the year. It has nothing to do with his dive for the first down against the Giants. That was a broken hand, broken thumb, broken hand, one of the two, but had nothing to do with the shoulder. This is an injury that was pre-existing, and really, for all intents and purposes, Derek Carr's career as a New Orleans Saint is now finished. He'll be paid this year, but the Saints are going to have to explore other options at the quarterback position. And I like him or hate him, I do wish Derek Carr, the best of health going forward and the best of luck. It sucks for him. It sucks for the Saints because, he was going to be the starting quarterback, and at least they had that box checked off, at a position where they didn't necessarily have to address it right away. And I know we'll talk about this in a minute. If a draft pick came up that they liked, okay, they pick them, but they weren't in a position where they absolutely positively had to use a draft choice on a quarterback because they had one with at least experience, starting experience, and now they don't. So now and already eventful offseason has become a whole hell of a lot more interesting about 2 weeks before the draft.
Yes, it has.
Yeah, for sure. It's been reported that the Saints knew the entire time and all this stuff. My thing is, man, it's just a little fishy to me. Like,
I think that's part of why they couldn't trade him.
Well, maybe, but
it's possible, sure.
I think this was known about by maybe not just the Saints. I think that's why they couldn't trade him. Joe Flacco just got another contract in the NFL. You're telling me teams wouldn't have wanted Derek Carr? Like, yeah, somebody would have been needing Derek Carr's services.
Joe Flacco, Daniel Jones, Jimmy Garoppolo still has a job. With Carr's trade situation, we all of us believed at the time that it had to do with the language of the contract and the money still owed, and I have no doubt that had a factor in it. But you can't trade somebody. You can't trade damaged goods without full disclosure. When that kind of thing happens, and we used to see it happen in the NBA all the time. When that kind of thing happens, 24 hours later, you're hearing that the league voided the trade between this team and that team because of medical issues. So the same exact thing would have happened. So Nick, you might have a point. We'll probably never know, or if we do, it won't be until Derek Carr's playing in another uniform.
Yep.
Well, my thing is like I just feel like this is an injury that possibly could have been played on in 2025. And Derek Carr has been loud that, he possibly wanted to play for a new team, and he wanted to explore trades. And it just seems like we as a team wanted to keep him and wanted to work with him. And I don't think Derek Carr wanted that same situation. He wanted to leave. But the thing is, first and foremost, we did have to restructure his contract to open up more cap room. I think that was that we had to. It was simple as that, like either way, you're either taking Derek Carr's $50 million dead cap hit if you were to cut him or and restructure everybody else in the roster, or you restructured Derek Carr and you opened up some cap. And I guess they knew about the risk that he wasn't going to play for the Saints. And I think this is Derek Carr saying he doesn't want to play for the Saints anymore. He's going to try to get fully healthy for the 2026 NFL football season for a new team.
Sean, you bring up a couple valid points, but back to what you said about you're positive that Derek Carr wanted out of here. If Derek Carr wanted out of here that badly, he would have agreed to a pay cut rather than a restructure to save the team some money, thereby making it easier to move him. What I kind of theorize happened is Derek Carr clearly doesn't want in New Orleans anymore, but Derek Carr also wants his money. The bottom line probably came down to this: do you want out of New Orleans more than you want your money? He chose his money, thereby remaining in New Orleans. And the part again, like the three of us agreed on at the start of the show, all these parties knew. It wasn't like Mickey Loomis and Kellen Moore said, okay, we're going to restructure Derek Carr because we have to create salary cap space. We'll make the best of him at quarterback, for the 2025, and then explore other options down the road. No, I don't think it went down like that. I think it went down. It came down to they knew before free agency, probably maybe even before Kellen Moore got hired, that Derek Carr was dealing with some sort of shoulder issue that was at least going to cost him significant time. And as the parties were discussing the contract and, hey, will you take a pay cut? No. Will you trade me? No, not unless you take a pay cut. Well, here's your Mexican standoff, if you'll excuse the expression. Okay, well, I'm going to have my shoulder work done sooner rather than later, and you guys are just going to have to figure out another way to go quarterback, and the Saints were okay with that.
All right, so Bob, let me ask you this. If you've been tuning in regularly, people, you know that I am just vehemently against taking any of these quarterbacks at 9. Obviously, Cam Ward's not going to be there.
Right.
Are we even on? Is Cam Ward a 100% sure thing? But in my opinion, Jackson Dart, Shedeur Sanders, definitely not worth the number 9 pick. So are you of the belief that it's just Spencer Rattler time? I mean, this is a guy that, granted it was the 5th round, but they still moved up back into selecting last year's draft. I know Saints fans, especially the ones that hate Derek Carr, like you mentioned, they've been clamoring for Rattler time. Did they finally get their wish?
So I think Spencer Rattler's going to get a shot. And I would sell my car to know what's going on inside Kellen Moore's head, because Kellen Moore, I didn't think about that one, but that was a good one. Because only he knows the answer to that question. Kellen Moore, as any new head coach, certainly has the right to pick and choose their players, especially at the quarterback position. And neither Kellen Moore nor anyone on this coaching staff had anything to do with the drafting of Spencer Rattler. So we don't know how they feel about him. And Spencer was a 5th round pick for a reason. It was because other teams passed on him several times until the Saints had an opportunity to draft him. So I think he's going to get a shot. I think to evaluate Spencer Rattler based off of last year's results solely is short-sighted, because he had no wide receivers, he had no offensive line, and for the last 3.5 games, he had no Alvin Kamara, and he had no Taysom Hill. So, when you're playing with a JV squad against bona fide NFL football teams, that's not a real fair evaluation. Having said that, there were a lot of things that I didn't like what I saw that carried over from his college days when I did the draft profile on him last year. And we've all been watching Spencer Rattler in college for years. Let's face facts too. And I'm with you, Nick. I don't, outside of Cam Ward, and in a lot of drafts, Cam Ward wouldn't even be the first quarterback chosen.
Yes, that's what I was trying to say when I was. Are we even sure he's a for sure thing? Any other year, it's just not the case. But these other guys, in my opinion.
Yeah, I mean, he's a first-round pick. Yeah, he's a first-round pick. I don't have a first-round grade on Jackson Dart. I don't have a first-round grade on Jalen Milroe. I don't have a first-round grade on Shedeur Sanders.
Agreed.
But Nick, Sean, we're not the ones making the pick. Kellen Moore is. And if Kellen Moore identifies a guy, whether it's Sanders, Milroe, Tyler Show, who they met with from Louisville a couple of days ago, he's not going to be a first-round pick, but you see my point. If Moore identifies any one of these guys as his guy, and if it's a guy like Sanders or Dart, they're probably not going to make it to 40 where they pick in the second round. So at that point, are they worth the 9th overall pick? No, not when you compare them to the other players that will be available. But when you compare them to the Saints' potential need, and the fact that if Kellen Moore decides he's the guy, Shedeur Sanders or whoever, that's the guy I want. I don't think he's going to be there. In fact, I know he's not going to be there at 40, and there's no guarantee we're going to be able to swing a trade to get back and get him. You have to take him at 9 then. I don't like it either. And if I'm the GM, if I'm the coach, that's not who I'm going for. I bite the bullet with Spencer Rattler, who I don't particularly like as a prospect, to be perfectly honest. I don't hate him. I see upside, but I wouldn't put all my, especially as a new coach, I wouldn't put my job security in the hands of a 5th-round pick that I had no say-so in choosing in the first place. My job security is going to be on a guy I scouted, on a guy that I picked, regardless where it went in the draft. So that's why I wrote the article that I did this morning or early this afternoon about feeling like I feel like the Saints will probably draft a quarterback, if not in the first, then almost certainly in the second, almost because they have to.
For sure. I mean, you look at the guys that they met in the pre-draft process, Cam Ward, Jackson Dart, Jalen Milroe, and Tyler Show, and they hosted a private workout with Kyle McCord and Quinn Ewers and Will Howard, which those are probably your 3rd-round guys. The first few were your 1st and your 2nd-round guys. So, and Tyler Show was on a top 30 visit. In my honest opinion, they do got to go quarterback. I mean, either at 9 or 40, one of those 2 picks.
Yep. And I agree with Nick. The fact that they have to makes me absolutely sick.
It makes me sick. It makes me so sick. Ah, God, this team needs so much. We need too much. Because to me, it's like Spencer Rattler's Sean and I were talking about this pre-show. In a way, it's a win-win situation. So he's gonna finally get a chance. A fair shot, right? Because like you said, Bob, last year with the JV squad, with throwing to guys like me, you, and Sean out there,
right?
What isn't a fair way to properly grade him? So, hey, here's your chance from the get-go. You're going to be the guy, at least for this season. You're going to be named the starter. You're going to get a fair shot. Now, if the Saints still win 7 games with Spencer Rattler, then he probably played well enough to where you're like, okay, the ceiling that some people envision on him may be well within reach. Or the other side of that, which is what I'm more inclined to think would happen, you'd be lucky to win 3 games and you're picking top 3, maybe 1st overall. Mm-hmm. So you get your win. Now Kellen Moore can really, because it's almost like this year to me, I'm right now as the roster currently stands, right? Derek Carr news is out. Derek Carr is done. We have no Derek Carr. This is like a redshirt year for me for Kellen Moore. So if Spencer Rattler really is what I think he's going to be, and your vessel to be lucky to win 3 games, then you get the 1st overall pick next year or a top 3 pick, access to a franchise-altering quarterback at that point, who isn't, like you said, Cam Ward being the best quarterback because it's a very weak class.
And I like what you're saying, and there's a lot of Saints fans that feel the exact same way. But here's the risk, in going that direction. If you go with Spencer Rattler or Jake Hainer or whoever, because you don't necessarily care about where you're going to finish in the standings. if you're Kellen Moore.
By the way, I will not watch with Jake Haener. No,
Well, and that's fair. But he's as long as he's on the roster, he's a subject. But is there any guarantee that if you go 5-12 or worse with Kellen Moore, that they're going to give Kellen Moore a year 2 to get things right? They did with Dennis Allen, but they knew Dennis Allen. I mean, loyalty is big with the Saints organization. We know that. But Kellen Moore is an outsider. Are they going to have that same loyalty and that same faith with him? We believe that they will based off of their history. But there's no guarantee of that. If you're Kellen Moore, and also if you're Kellen Moore, you're going into this thing, especially as a first-time head coach, you want to win. If you don't want to win, then you're not the kind of competitor that I want to be my head coach. But I see all your points, and we sit here, we talk about hey, we don't like this quarterback class, but we do like, and I think it's consensus. Everybody believes that next year's class is going to be better, but we don't know that. We don't know that. How much have we really seen from Arch Manning? I believe Arch Manning is going to be very good, but how much have we really seen? Not a lot to tell us that. Same with Garrett Nussmeier. There's the Drew Aller fan club, and Drew has some things in his game. You know who Drew Aller reminds me of? Spencer Rattler. There's no guarantee that these guys are going to continue to progress and continue to develop. And if they don't, then we're going to be sitting here next year at this time saying, if the Saints hold a top 3 pick, oh my God, I wish they didn't hold a top 3 pick this year because there's no quarterbacks worth taking at 3 or 5 or wherever. Plus, there's no guarantee that an Arch Manning is going to elect to come out. So, you're continuing to play Russian roulette at the quarterback position, which is all the more reason why I think. And again, if Kellen Moore doesn't like any of these quarterbacks, then Kellen Moore shouldn't take any of these quarterbacks. But we're assuming, given the extensive interviewing and scouting that the team has done on several guys at this position, that we're assuming that they're going to find at least one that they like, and that's my article based off of how I feel the Saints are going to pick a quarterback because they have no choice. That's based off of the assumption that they find someone that they like. If they don't, then Kellen Moore's an absolute idiot for drafting a guy that he doesn't feel confident in. And at that point, you roll with Spencer Rattler, and we just figure this crap out next year.
Absolutely. I mean, in my honest opinion, you got to go quarterback either at 9-40, and then you have somebody to compete with Rattler, and then for maybe the young quarterback, and then you go out and sign you a veteran, maybe Teddy Bridgewater, who's familiar with the franchise, somebody that can help and coach these young guys. Teddy Bridgewater, actual coach who took a break and went back to the Lions before the playoffs. I think that would be a good situation, and I don't think it could be all that doom and gloom like we are sitting here to be. I think you can hit on a Jalen Milroe with the right coaching. I think you can hit with a Shedeur Sanders if you have the proper protection on your offensive line. I think you can hit with a Jackson Dart because he's one of the best Ole Miss quarterbacks in Ole Miss history. Yes, even over Eli Manning and his father, Arch Manning. So, there is potential amongst these quarterbacks. Yes, I get it. In previous drafts with like Caleb Williams, Jaden Daniels, sure, they wouldn't be ranked above them, but they do have potential. And I just don't think with today's college football, I don't think you're going to see that quarterback who's just this generation you cannot – pass up on and tank. You got to tank for. I don't think you're going to see that moving forward. So I think you got to keep the quarterbacks. You got to keep options as many as possible. You draft a guy, you have Rattler, and you go out and sign you a veteran. And I think the Saints can still be successful if Kellen Moore is really the coach, we hired and we think he's going to be. And I truthfully,
Well, and here, yeah, and here's a point I made in the article too. If you're going to develop a young quarterback, and I'm including Spencer Rattler in this conversation because he's a young quarterback, now is the time to do it. Because I mean, you're not only Kellen Moore, but your offensive coordinator Doug Nussmeier, your quarterback coach Scott Tolzien, they're all former NFL quarterbacks. They all three have been together for a long time, so they're on the same page on what they want to do with their offensive system, their audibles, their play calls, their hot reads, all of it. And they've been successful at multiple, not just one place for 1 year. They've been successful with Justin Herbert. They've been successful with Dak Prescott. They've been successful with Jalen Hurts. So I'm not saying any of these guys, Jackson Dart, Jalen Milroe, any of them, I'm not saying any of these guys could be the next Dak Prescott or Jalen Hurts or whomever. But I am saying that if they see the traits in any of these guys that they like for their system, it's their job to develop them. If they decide they're going to go with Spencer Rattler, it's their job, also on the player, but it's their job to develop them. What makes Nick and I think I could speak for you in this case, Nick, what makes Nick and I so sick is the conversation that the three of us had a few weeks ago, where we all pretty much came to the consensus philosophy is, hey, two schools of thought when you don't have a franchise quarterback. Either you move heaven and earth to go get him. Well, is there a franchise quarterback in this draft? Probably not. Or B, if you don't have the resources to get it, then B, you build your team around the quarterback position until you get yourself one. Well, with the 9th overall pick, there's going to be so many players that can make a difference for this team here if you draft right. So many needs this team has, like Nick said, and I fully agree. I mean, we went down the list a few weeks ago, where it feels like we're in double digits. And now, if you feel like you have to take a quarterback at 9, you rob yourself of a difference maker at a different position. Personally, I hope Kellen Moore came into the building and said, I love Spencer Rattler. I can't wait to coach him. I don't care that Derek Carr can't play. I don't care that Derek Carr won't be here a year from now. I can coach Spencer Rattler. Hey, there's only one way we'll know the answer to that question, and that is 2 Thursdays from now when the Saints make their first round pick.
I've seen in recent history teams with middling at best quarterback play. Like Case Keenum beat Sean Payton and Drew Brees in the playoff game.
Right.
Can the Minnesota Miracle game. Let's be aware of that, okay? Who's the I don't even think he's there anymore. Obviously, I don't think he's Jaden Daniels' backup, but who's the young kid? Who's had Washington
Heineke
against Tom
Heineke.
Brady. Taylor Heineke. Thank you. I'm just of the belief that you build, especially at 9, and honest to God, even at 40, those are picks. Can get blue chip talent.
Yeah,
you need to, especially on the defensive side of the ball, build the team around so that when you finally have when the guy does come along, now you're ready to go. You know what I mean? I cannot. Man, I really hope we don't go quarterback at 9.
And I fully agree with what you said. And go ahead.
Milroe in the 3rd, awesome, absolutely. Take the chance in the 3rd. That's fine. We saw what Milroe was at Alabama. Sean, I know that you were really high on him. Or, it's something they haven't done in a long time, man. Let's trade back, right? If Will Johnson,
that's what I want.
If Will Johnson's not there, the corner that I've had them linked to and that I want them to take, if a guy like that is no longer on the board, hey, then get some more ammo, right? Trade back, because if you trade back into the 20s and now you want to take Jackson Dart if he's still there, okay, cool, because you've acquired more ammo in maybe a second round pick or a 3rd round pick from whoever wants to move up. Now you can take that quarterback because you've moved up and you have those extra picks to keep filling out your roster, but just not at 9. That has to be just an absolute difference-making dog, right? It cannot be there can be no question about it, right? And these quarterbacks don't fit that bill.
But the thing is, there is a question about it, though. If the three of us are making the pick, then it's obvious that none of the three of us would go quarterback at 9. But if Kellen, you talk about liking Jalen Milroe, and I do too. If Kellen Moore, so we'll stay on Milroe. We'll use him as our example. If Kellen Moore looks at Jalen Milroe and says, I really like that guy, I hope he's there in the 3rd. If you're hoping he's there, why don't you just go get him? Again, 9 is way too early for me too. But if that's the guy for your system, then you have to pull that trigger. It sucks that they're in this position, and ideally,
it does.
They would trade back exactly like you said. Trade back in the 1st round to the late teens.
You know what, man, it works there. Come on,
Stop that. But no, you trade back, you pick up an extra 2nd rounder, pick up an extra 3rd rounder, and then guess what? You have the ammunition to move back up. You can still get yourself a playmaker in the 1st round, and say you like 3 quarterbacks on this board, not named Cam Moore, because we know he's going to go first, or 1st or 2nd.
Sure.
But say you're sitting there and you're Kellen Moore, and you're like, all right, I would love Milroe, Dart, Show, and Sander. I love all 4 of them for my system, but none really stand out above the rest. I'm going to trade back, pick up some more ammunition. If more than one of them are still there, then maybe I trade back again, or maybe I take a chance. I draft a different need. And by the way, there's extra draft picks extra capital that I picked up from moving back the 1st time. I can now move back into the 1st round and grab the guy that's left that I still want. You get your playmaker, you fill your need, and you get your quarterback. That's the ideal situation. This is going to be the most interesting draft I have covered for the New Orleans Saints in my career, for sure.
Never a dull moment. Never
no.
a moment.
I mean, I've always said this in years past. We never, God, you never know what the Saints are going to do. You really don't know what they're going to do this year. I mean, this is like a different level of we don't know. I mean, God.
So, Nick, you got any questions for Bob before we let him go?
No, I think we touched on what we needed to touch on there. Yeah, like you said, Bob, I wish Derek Carr the best. I never held any of this animosity or ill will that a lot of our fan base has toward him. Yeah, it sucks. And honestly, much like Dennis Allen, never got to play with the full deck of cards. You know, and that's the way I'm going to remember Derek Carr's time here. Just an injury-riddled, injury-plagued mess of a post-Drew Brees, Sean Payton era. And
yeah, and I mean, hopefully if the Saints find their next bona fide franchise quarterback sooner rather than later, the Derek Carr years will be forgotten. If they have to wait years and years or decades, like many teams do, between finding franchise quarterbacks, then Derek Carr could find himself on a list of, the Saints have had, 9, 12, 15 quarterback, whatever the case is, since Drew Brees, before they finally found their next Josh Allen, Jim Kelly and Josh Allen. We're talking 1996 to 2017. That's a long time, and that's just one example of many that I have. That's a long time to go between franchise quarterbacks. So hopefully
Rob Johnson wasn't a franchise quarterback?
What's that?
Rob Johnson wasn't a franchise quarterback?
They thought he was. They thought he was briefly. Well, Rob Johnson had the Derek Carr syndrome. Rob Johnson was brought in to replace Jim Kelly. He didn't have a personality that fit the city of Buffalo, fit the area. By that phrase, you understand, Nick, what I'm talking about, because you and I are Western Pennsylvania, Western New York, similar thought processes. So I mean, immediately Rob Johnson did not make friends within the Buffalo Bills fan base, Buffalo Bills media. Starting to sound familiar, Derek Carr haters. And then the worst thing that happened to Rob Johnson happened to Rob Johnson. He didn't play well initially, and then he suffered with injuries. Sound familiar, Derek Carr people? Rob Johnson's a great example. I can't believe I didn't think of that. I mean, so many franchises have had to go through similar things. It's not like you're the Packers and going from Brett Favre to Aaron Rodgers, or the 49ers going from Joe Montana to Steve Young. That's a twice in a lifetime thing.
Brett Favre to Rodgers to Jordan Love, like that's not real life. That's
right.
not how it happens. Like that's a complete outlier. But overall, I think having said all that, never got to play the full deck of cards, and it was all, due to injury. But overall, I thought Derek Carr played pretty well as a Saint. That's where I stand on it.
He had his moments. What killed him is A, he wasn't consistent. B, his name isn't Drew Brees. You're stepping out of such an immense shadow that it was almost a no-win situation. And the fact that he wasn't able to play well consistently enough for the fan base, and then it spiraled out of control from there. It was just it was almost doomed from the start.
Agreed.
For sure. So long, Derek Carr. I guess it was okay while it lasted. But thank you, Bob, for coming on. I'm gonna put the Bayou Blitz podcast up on here. You can join the Bayou Blitz pod group. You can follow on Instagram, Twitter, every Wednesday, 9 p.m. Eastern with Bob Rose and Brennan Boylan. And Bob Rose is the credential writer for Athlon Sports that covers the Saints and Pitt Panthers. Before we let you go, Bob, is there anything you'd like to plug in with that and anything else you have to say?
Boys, I appreciate you having me on. It's always great to join you guys. I'm glad we were able to do it again. The topic sucked, but I'm glad we were able to get together. And listen, join us for our Bayou Blitz draft coverage. The week of the draft, we will not be on Wednesday night, mainly because we go live at the start of round 1 on Thursday, and we stay live throughout all of round 1, throughout all of day 2, and throughout most of day 3. It's a draft marathon, a draft-a-thon, and I get real punchy towards the end. I'm told that's when I get entertaining. We leave live chat open. I'll send out links to probably the both of you, as well as other collaborators that I've worked with, to jump on and off. I especially like to do that in day 2 and day 3, for draft recap and thoughts. But yeah, fans, make sure you tune in for the Bayou Blitz. Brandon and I have loads of fun with our live draft coverage.
For sure. That's going to be draft, like you said, just like 2 minutes ago. This is going to be one of the most interesting drafts the Saints have had, and it feels like we have said this every single year.
Right.
But thanks for coming on, Bob. It's always a pleasure. And I'm sure we'll recap the draft after draft week, and man, it's going to get real interesting.
Can't wait to do it. Thanks, guys. God bless. We'll talk soon.
All right, Bob. Thank you.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Man, Bob always put it in the good insight on Saints football. Make sure you give him a follow. Make sure you give Off the Dome the like, subscription, comment, everything you need to do to support Off the Dome, which we appreciate. So let's get to the comments, because I see.
And just real quick to piggyback off of what Bob was saying there. I mean, I know that they're going to go live. He said on Thursday night, but like we said in shows past, we're going live for the first round on Thursday night. I'd assume we're probably going to get on maybe, I don't know, an hour or so before the draft, and just kind of anyone and everyone get in here, get in the chat. Let's get the chat bumping, like we've even had going during these shows. It's going to be an entertaining Thursday night for sure. I'll probably be drunk. I'm sure I'll be drinking. I mean, so.
For sure, and I'll be drinking too. We're gonna have a good old time. We're gonna have the hotline bling hotline on there, But so let's get to these comments, because I couldn't get to them because Bob was getting out that good content right there. We have Randy. He says, "What's up, fellas?" He was listening to the Saints block party at the same time. Salute. I still appreciate that. Then we got Jerry G, our biggest supporter. He was listening to Ross Jackson, which is another great Saints podcaster, but he says he's here now. He says, "What's up, Nick, Sean, Bob Rose? What's up, Jerry G?" What do y'all say about the March for Arch crowd? I mean, I don't think people understand, like, tanking in the NFL does not exist.
Doesn't exist. Tanking in
NBA.
Man, definitely not in the NFL. It's. I mean, you can say, like the Pelicans at the end of this season, right? By the end of this season, we had guys that are probably never going to play in another NBA game ever again. I mean, half the roster is guys that'll never see another NBA minute. So it's just a little more noticeable, I guess, in the NBA. But in the NFL, you got a roster full. You got 11 guys on the field on both sides of the ball, right? It just doesn't. It's a lot harder to. Plus, and at the end of the season, all this stuff is still on tape, right? This is all stuff that other teams are looking. You're trying to get your next contract. Try telling a guy, right? Try telling a 29-year-old guy who's, contract's up after this last game of the season. What, you expect him not to go out and give his all and play for another contract? Like, it's
exactly.
You know what I mean? It's just not realistic. It doesn't happen. But Randy, if you missed the part where I was talking to Bob about just kind of a win-win situation when it comes to Spencer Rattler, right? He's either going to play well enough, and maybe the Saints get to 7 wins with Spencer Rattler, and then at the end of the season, you're sitting there like, okay, there's that ceiling that we kind of suspected that he had, right? The ceiling that made the Saints comfortable trading back into the 5th round in last year's draft to select him. Or, which is more likely, I think that will happen, you're going to win 3 games and be picking first overall, and now you can get a franchise-changing quarterback like an Arch Manning or like a Nussmeier or whoever they deem that to be, and we're a long ways away from that. But the class is projected to be better than the class this year. So that's why I just think Spencer Rattler, at this point, I'm just kind of like, I throw my hands up like, fuck, just do it. You know what I mean? Just what do we got to lose at this point?
For sure. Who that nation? Yo, Jerry, what's good? Down on Saints Block Party. Yeah, that's a no on Aaron Rodgers.
Aaron Rodgers? No. Gag me, please. No, thank you.
Bob Rose does a lot of podcasts. He's
Bob's a busy man. Bob's a busy dude.
He also goes on, I think it's 103.7 The Game in Lafayette. I think that's the right. Ryan, correct me if I'm wrong. He would know Lafayette radio station. So Bob is a well-known guy.
Oh, no question. And we appreciate that. I'm not mad at Carr. I just don't understand why Kellen Moore and Mickey Loomis chose to extend him. Well, they chose to extend him, and see, Joel, that was done, so we had to create salary cap space. That's what we said when Bob was on. It didn't, whether or not Derek Carr was ever going to play another snap for the Saints, which, we were under the impression that was going to be the case. Doing that with his contract made it so that we were able to get Justin Reed or do anything in free agency. We needed a cap space, and that's how we got there. It had really nothing to do with whether or not he was going to be the starting quarterback for the Saints or not. His contract needed touched because we needed the salary cap space. So.
And we got a call. Let's see.
Call from
Ryan.
To accept, press 1.
Ryan.
Ryan. All right. Ryan, can you hear us?
Yo, what's up?
Yo, what's up? Tell us what's on your mind with Derek Carr, Ryan.
All right, so here's first things first I got to say with Derek Carr situation. And this is mainly calling out all the haters. Look, y'all gave a shit about this man not being there during Super Bowl. Y'all gave a shit about this man not being there during Mardi Gras. Like, what the actual hell is this? Drew Brees did not stick around New Orleans after he left. Everybody liked Drew Brees. Drew Brees won. But 80% of the Saints players are not sticking around New Orleans. Chris Olave, he's wide receiver 1. He is an absolute prick to everyone in New Orleans. I have watched this dude interact with people back at my former workplace, and he is the absolute prick. But everybody freaking loves this guy. Like, it is obnoxious to hate this man because he is out here just living his own life. Like, he's not even trying to bother anybody, and people are just hating on the guy. And not
That's
to
a great-
mention, when he actually plays for the Saints are a winning team. Whether or not you want to admit that or not, he has a winning record with the New Orleans Saints.
Wow.
So, like, cut the bullshit with Derek Carr. Like, get over it. I understand he might not be the heir apparent to Drew Brees. He might not be everything that Cam Jordan is or DeMario Davis is. But at the end of the day, he's a winning quarterback with this football team. He put the football team in the best chances to win for the past couple seasons because we saw what the alternative was for these past couple seasons. It wasn't good. So let's just get that straight. Like, the man, he might deserve some hate, but he doesn't deserve all the hate. And also, like, these people who are like, oh, this looks bad on the Saints, like, for knowing this. No, it doesn't look bad on the Saints because the Saints had to do what they had to do to be able to fill the roster with 53 bodies who are actually able to play in the National Football League. Because at the end of the day, if they would have tried to restructure everybody but Carr, this team would have looked absolutely horrible. I mean, you're talking it would have been UFL players, Canadian Football League players on the depth charts.
Mm-hmm.
Like, that's why you had to restructure Derek Carr. Whether or not he's injured or going to miss the whole season is irrelevant to it. The fact is, you just had to do that to field a whole roster of NFL-worthy players. So, like, that kind of stuff's just aggravating me. And also this stuff about, like, the Milroe versus Dart versus Sanders type of arguments. Look, I get it. Shedeur has a ton of hype. I get it. Sometimes Dart's not the most popular guy because he went to Ole Miss. And Milroe is Milroe. But at the end of the day, like, comparing all three, to me, it's a toss-up on who's better. It's just the fact of the matter is that Milroe at 40, I think, makes a lot more sense than, like, Shedeur Sanders at 9 or Jackson Dart at 9 or even, like, trying to trade back into the first round for either of those two guys. I just think that makes a lot more sense than freaking trying to get Shedeur Sanders, use your ninth pick on a quarterback, because there's a lot of other positions where you can get really good players that are going to be starters day one, no doubt, at 9 than Shedeur Sanders or Jackson Dart.
And that's what they have to get. Agreed.
And that's all I got.
Yeah, Ryan, Nick and I agree. Nick agrees with you. I think what you're saying is 100% valid, and it's calling out the Saints Twitter. You know, what you got to say, Nick?
Let me just say, like, look, man, tattoo here, all the shit behind me, like, license plate in my car, my son named after Drew Brees, right? I love New Orleans. Okay. There's never been a non-native New Orleanian that loves New Orleans maybe more than I do. I've been in New Orleans 6 times. Loved every trip. But you know where I don't want to live? New Orleans. Like, actually, we cannot blame these players for going elsewhere, back to where they're from, for Derek Carr going back to California. Bro, I love New Orleans. I'm going back to California in the off season. Come on, man. Like, what are we talking about here? It's crazy to expect anyone to want to stay in New Orleans longer than they have to. You know what I mean? Like, from a professional athlete standpoint. Like, come on. I've never understood that. And I definitely agree with Milroe. 40 is probably still a little too rich for me, but it's better than Sanders at 9, and it's better than Jackson Dart at 9 or something like that, because that has to be a player, like he said, and like I've been preaching for what feels like 2 or 3 months now on our show. You just got to take a blue chip day one starter, can't miss prospect, and regardless, no matter who they get at quarterback, that guy is still going to be in competition with Spencer Rattler, because that guy is not going to be so much more profoundly better than Spencer Rattler. You know what I mean?
For sure. And Jalen Milroe is a guy that I really like in the second round, and we're going to get into it in a second. And I agree with Ryan. I agree with Nick where, like, Jalen Milroe at 40 is better than drafting Shedeur and Jackson Dart at 9, for sure. And what Ryan said, it's a toss-up. I 100% agree. I mean, I just got done watching the tape on Jalen Milroe, and honestly, like I said in my tweets earlier this week, if Nick Saban never retires, Jalen Milroe would probably be the top quarterback off this draft board. And
well on his way to being, yep. Absolutely. That I agree with. Absolutely.
Anyways, Ryan, is there anything else you would like to say?
No, I think I'm good. Just who dat, and for the love of God, like, stop chastising Derek Carr every chance you get, because trust me, I know some dudes who absolutely – there's an all-pro player on this football team that absolutely hates New Orleans. I know that for a fact. In fact, I'll call his ass out. JT Gray, he does not like New Orleans. He wants out of the city at all costs. So, like, look, we know Derek Carr obviously doesn't want to be here. There are other guys on this team that do not want to be here. We have to stop acting like we're holding Derek Carr to this damn double standard because he's QB1. Like, it's stupid. There's plenty of guys who don't want to be on this team. Like, and I hate to say it like that, but at the end of the day, there's a lot. I personally think whoever Kellen Moore chooses to go at quarterback, unless it's Spencer Rattler, that I have faith in Kellen Moore. And I think if he does go the Spencer Rattler route, I think he's thinking next year, I definitely have a chance to get my quarterback, whether that's Nussbus, Arch, whoever it is. But I have a lot of faith in Kellen Moore on making sure the offense gets right. And I mean, even with Brandon Staley, like, there's a lot of opportunity with him to make sure, like, defense is right. A lot of flexibility. Like, every guy who's talking about the defense right now, talking really positively about Brandon Staley. So that gives me a lot of optimism that, hey, like, you know, whoever they choose to go at quarterback, unless it's Spencer Rattler, this team could probably make a decent run. You know, even at the NFC South, not anything further than that.
Oh, yeah.
But I mean, at the NFC South, how terrible it is, like, there might be a solid chance. So that's all I got to say. Who dat? Go Pels. Fire everybody. Go ahead. Clean house. Adios, guys.
All right, man.
All right, Ryan. Talk to you later. And whoever calls in, we're still working on the audio. Whoever calls in won't be able to hear Nick. But I'll try to keep it balanced and then let the caller know, hey, Nick's talking, and then I'll kind of fill in the caller what Nick said. That way we're all in time. But eventually we're going to get it worked out. But I do apologize for that. Thanks for Ryan for the call.
I look again. I agree with a lot of what he said, but I just think the reasons that this fan base found to slander Derek Carr and to have an issue with him. Like, listen, I love New Orleans. I wouldn't want to live in New Orleans, so I ain't never gonna hold that against a professional athlete, man. Come on, like, what are we talking about?
Well, Randy says it's false. He says JT Gray is always in the city doing different things.
That I can't speak to, but
let's get into Jalen Milroe, because, you know, earlier this week, Matt Moscona had this rant about Jalen Milroe and how he's going to be a bust.
My favorite guy, my buddy.
Yeah, your buddy, Jalen Milroe. I mean, we're talking about a guy that put up 9 touchdowns against LSU, right. And Matt Moscona.
He sounds like a salty LSU fan, is what he sounds like. You know what I'm saying? Like,
we're talking about a guy who put up 4 touchdowns in Tiger Stadium this past season and absolutely dogged our ass out. And I understand LSU's defense is not good, but at the same time, it's LSU, and it was a big game.
Yep.
But you're talking about
for the right price. I'm Milroe in the third, and I'm doing a handstand in my living room. Like, what are we talking about? No question. It's just you can't. There's a right price for him, and the first 2 rounds is a little too rich for me. Now you could talk me into the second round. I would not like throw a fit about it, but I wouldn't be thrilled about it either. But just, I know Bob wants to go. If he thinks it's their guy, go get the guy. But they just can't do that at 9. Just trade back at that point. Like, no, Milroe's got it. I mean, Milroe is no less a question mark than any of these other quarterbacks to me. Just that's where I'm at with him.
Well, Milroe is a guy that runs just like Taysom Hill with Lamar Jackson's speed. So he's already going to be a top-tier runner as a quarterback in the NFL where that's the trend at quarterback in the NFL. I don't care what people say. Pocket passers are extinct. And this is why I like Shador. Don't get me wrong. I really do like Shador. But the problem with Shador is if he's not going to have a good offensive line and wide receivers that know how to get open, a.k.a. Travis Hunter, Jimmy Horn, and so on, he's going to struggle, dude. Like, it was scary to watch outside the pocket because he was very slow. And yes, he had some successful runs out the pocket, even had a couple running touchdowns. But you're talking about the NFL. You're not going to get around Micah Parsons. You're not going to get around TJ Watt. You're not going to get around Myles Garrett and all these big-time pass rushers.
These aren't doctors and lawyers anymore. Yep, exactly.
No. I mean, you're talking about Jalen Milroe, his first year starting for Alabama, would finish 6th in Heisman voting. And he was on a trajectory to be a Heisman candidate his second year of starting for Alabama. And it's not his fault that Kalen DeBoer had to come in and run the Washington Huskies offense, who was designed for Michael Penix. It's not his fault. But by the way, Jalen Milroe wasn't half bad in the Kalen DeBoer offense. I mean, you're talking about a guy who elevated his game to new heights, accounting for 36 total touchdowns, 16 passing, 20 rushing, while complying 3,570 yards of total offense. I mean, his arm talent is elite. Yes, his accuracy struggles, but that could be coached. Reading defenses struggles, but that could be coached.
That's what Kellen Moore's here to do. You know what I mean?
That's why you bring in Scott Tozin as your quarterback coach. That's why you bring in
Bob said, former professional quarterbacks. And look, you don't have to sell me on Jalen Milroe. You don't. It's just I'm at all times, maybe to a fault. I'm just always about value. I'm just always about taking a guy at the right point. And as Milroe in the third, like I said, Milroe in the third, cool. I'm here for that. Could even be a steal. But anything, that first or second round pick, that just needs to be like a defensive starter from the get-go. Matt said he is out if we draft Milroe. Matt, I'm just going to confess. He said a lot of things. I don't even want to talk. Ugh. Are you going to show his clip? Or I don't know if you're going to show. I don't know if you're going to show his actual clip. But
I never got to download it, but I would have.
Stand that motherfucker.
It's just crazy to me how you can watch Jalen Milroe.
He's a salty LSU fan. Is what he sounds like.
He is. I mean, it's just crazy to me, man. Like, I mean, you're talking about a guy that had over 7,000 yards in total yards in his career, 78 touchdowns, 45 passing, 33 rushing, which makes him an all-time great at the quarterback position for Alabama.
Yep.
Who has produced Bryce Young, Tua, and so on. I mean, come on. Look. When LSU won in overtime, Brian Kelly's first year against Alabama, Bryce Young was still the quarterback. I was telling Alabama fans after the game, I was like, look, Milroe is the better talent to Bryce Young. And yes, Bryce Young can throw the fuck out of that ball, and he's a better passer than Milroe. And
we saw a lot of that in the second half of this season with the Panthers. I mean, he really started to kind of catch fire a little bit. So, I mean, I was impressed by Bryce Young, which I never thought was anything I was going to be saying at this point.
Right, but this is why I said Milroe's more talented, because for one,
he is.
Young doesn't have the size. He doesn't have the arm talent as far as the cannon. He doesn't have the running ability. Bryce Young can run, but he can
run.
He
can move, but he can't scoot like Milroe. Like,
I mean,
yeah. Yeah.
You're talking about you're drafting a guy who's automatically going to be up there with Lamar Jackson and Jaden Daniels in terms of the running quarterback. And you just got a head coach who had Jalen Hurts, who is also a running quarterback, and he has developed his passing game as the years went by. And people say, oh, Jalen Hurts was more of an accurate passer than Milroe in college. That is false. When Jalen Hurts was at Alabama, he was a poor passer. He had a quarterback rating of 55%. It wasn't until he went to Oklahoma to play for Lincoln Riley, who produces Heisman-winning quarterbacks, is when it jumped up to 69. You know, Jalen Milroe has a career starting quarterback rating of 65, which is better than Jalen Hurts. And it's better than Lamar Jackson when he was in college. So we're sitting there talking about Jalen Milroe's passing when literally he was a better passer in college than those two guys who won a Super Bowl and won 2 MVPs.
He has, look, like you said, all the tools, all the talent is there. And things like accuracy and reading professional defenses. Look, if nothing else, that's what Kellen Moore was brought here to do with him, or with any young quarterback that gets taken.
Exactly, Joel Smith.
Just to go into like just a fantasy monologue real quick. Like you see like Justin Fields being a starting quarterback for the Jets this year. Like I think Justin Fields is going to be a hell of a fantasy quarterback. Like he's going to be he could be like a top 5 fantasy quarterback this season.
I agree.
He starts all year. Like that rushing ability is insane. If Jalen Milroe gets to be a full-time starter in the NFL, he is going to be a fantasy demon, bro.
And that's by comparison. It is a Justin Fields.
Man.
Justin Fields has that elite running ability, and he has that arm talent. He's not always the most accurate quarterback, but the point is he started 4 weeks for the Pittsburgh Steelers, and that was the best 4 weeks that the Steelers got from a quarterback since Ben Roethlisberger. Like, it's simple as that.
I think, wasn't he 4-2? Didn't he start 6 weeks for them? I could be wrong.
Pretty sure he only had 1 loss.
Okay. I thought he was 4-2. Regardless, they should have never made that switch to Russell Wilson.
No.
Hell no.
Terrible decision.
Should have never made that switch to Russell Wilson. But yeah, just from a fantasy perspective, I know it's a little off topic, but man, Jalen Milroe gets a chance to be a full-time starter. Watch out, because that is going to be a stash for fantasy purposes. For sure. And then we can get some of the comments. Sanders hasn't necessarily played elite defenses. Big 12 ain't known for defense. Absolutely. Same thing with Pac-12. He played for the Pac-12 the year before they moved to the Big 12. They're talking about JT Gray here. Let's see. Randy says he's not against getting Milroe in the mid rounds. He could be coached up into a serviceable player. And this is the point that Ryan had. Not even a serviceable player. He could be your quarterback. It has to be the right, like he said, like Randy said, mid rounds. I'm talking like no earlier than third. A 4th or 5th, then you're getting a fucking steal, right? You're getting an absolute steal at that point. But like, I just don't want to. Look here, Nick. If you draft him in the 2nd at 40, let's just say we do. Ryan and I had this conversation. If he does not work out at quarterback, he can easily be Taysom Hill 2.0, and you still got a stud of an offensive weapon. It's a win-win either way. The guy can play running back. The guy can play wide receiver. The guy can play tight end. He can play wildcat quarterback. He doesn't have to be a quarterback moving forward if he doesn't happen to work out. He could be an offensive weapon, period. Like, so it's a win-win in my opinion. No, I'm all for the Saints taking Milroe. Just got to be for the right. Again, my favorite word, value. You guys in Saints Block Party brought this up about Milroe. Anyways,
we've been doing this for an hour and 9 minutes so far, Nick. This is why. I mean, this is why Off the Dome Sports is up and coming.
We've had 2-hour shows. It's the fucking off season. You know what I mean? The Saints have given us a lot. It's been a tumultuous off season, and it got even more so on Friday with this Derek Carr bullshit. But hey, man, we can. I think we're doing pretty well for where we're at. So
hell yeah. And then let's get into who we can draft defensively. So this is our last segment of going over NFL draft prospects for this year before we actually head into the draft week next week.
I don't want to speak for us. Maybe you had different plans because I mean you're the one that I usually do the music, although I didn't do this week. I'm not taking credit for that garbage. But usually you're the one that does the breakdown and kind of let me know what we're going to go over. So, but I think next show would be our last chance to do like our final mock draft, right? And kind of go over them.
Mock draft and favorite players, our favorite players. And in which I'm a big draft guy. Like that, this is what I live for when it comes to.
I'm year after year I am becoming one, but yeah, you're definitely more like locked into the college world than I am for sure.
I'll be honest with you. I've slipped up the past couple of years, but I used to have whole ass notebooks of each player, and I'll have a scouting report, just like Mike Detillier when he had his scouting report on every single prospect in the draft, and I had guys that I liked the most that has popped off. I guess my biggest guy that popped off was Stephon Diggs, but he, I had a 4th round grade on him. I think he went on the 5th round grade, and he ended up popping off with the Minnesota Vikings. And I had some other guys that I really like. I did predict that Jalen Hurts was going to be the first quarterback to win a Super Bowl in his draft class as far as quarterbacks go, and that did happen.
You've told me that many times over the years. You were right on that.
And then Kevin from JDS Sports can back it up because that's where I said it at. But yeah, well, let's get into number 9 and what defensive prospects that could be there at number 9, and do we take them? Love that sound. I can't stop playing that sound. But let's get into it. The first guy who's number 4 on the big board for NFLDraftBuzz.com, but he has a potential to drop to number 9, and that's Mason Graham, defensive tackle out of Michigan, 6'3", 320, wearing a 5'10", 40-yard dash. Mason Graham, if he is there at 9, and let's say Will Johnson's there at 9, who are you taking?
Oh, Mason Graham's.
That's hard, isn't it?
It is. Oh, yeah, it is. But Graham's the better prospect, but I think Will Johnson fills a bigger, more immediate need with the departure of Marshawn Lattimore. So I think, and just Will Johnson has been my guy from the get-go, like I've said on multiple shows, basically since we've came back in early February. Just Will Johnson from Michigan I've been locked into him. He's who I want the Saints to take at 9. And almost to the point where if he's gone, I'm just like in ultimate trade back mode, just basically right away. Because I don't think there's any way Mason Graham is too good of a prospect for him to get to 9. Now, obviously, like you do have to have a conversation if a guy like that is there, because he's going to be that good. He's that kind of player where it is a no-brainer if the Saints didn't have that need for let's face it, a number 1 corner, a number 1 kind of lockdown corner, which Lattimore was for a lot of his career. But, I would say Mason Graham, the better prospect, but Will Johnson, maybe the bigger need. So I'm Will Johnson all the way. I want to get your. So let's talk about sleepers, right? Guys who we think the Saints could take elsewhere in the draft. If we trade back, right? What about a guy like James Pierce from Tennessee, pass rusher, right? you could probably get him middle or early 20s in the first round, right? I mean, that's if the Saints are going to trade back, you can still, and that's a need, right, for the Saints. It's not corner, but it's a pass rusher. We had that in Zach Bond, but he went and became an All-Pro with the Eagles. So we do need an edge rusher.
He is one of them guys that killed the combine, so he's a combine warrior.
I love that. I mean, that's like my favorite thing.
Right. And, he's got comparisons to a Chop Robinson, a Jalen Phillips, and a David Ajabu, whatever you say his name is. Those are his 3 NFL comparisons. I think this is a guy that might be the Bruce Irvin of this draft. You remember when the Seahawks selected Bruce Irvin and everybody's going crazy? Like, this guy wasn't supposed to be picked until the second round. He was picked number 14 or 13. I think that's James Pierce. And I think you got a guy that, I would like to see the Saints select even at 9. Like, even at 9, if there's no other options, there's no Will Johnson, he will be there at 9.
You're right. You think he's worthy of a 9?
I mean, I think the skill set and as far as potential, I think he is worthy of 9. If you don't have any other options, like if a Mason Graham, Will Johnson's not there, or a Mike Green's not there, I mean,
what about
you're talking about? This is the new age edge rusher in the NFL, and you're talking about a guy who is going to be just like a Nick Benito from the Broncos, and who's the other guy on the other side for the Broncos that were so dominant this year. You're talking about guys who look like fucking safeties are playing edge rushers and absolutely dominating with their speed and with their low-key power ability with that size. Would fit perfect in Brandon Staley's, new defensive scheme that we're running, the 3-4. So I do like James Pierce, but a sleeper that I like, who may not play half the season next year because he's still injured, is Jahad Campbell out of Alabama. You're talking about a guy that,
both of our mock drafts we had,
Well, you're talking about a guy that if a team really likes him, may go in the first round, maybe late first round, and you might get a team that's going to take a chance on it and just let him sit and get healthy and come back. But you're talking about a guy who if he's fully healthy, you're talking about a guy who you would draft at 9. Like, simple as that.
Yeah, absolutely. He is probably worthy of that. Yeah, he's just he's a blue chipper. He's what he's the type of profile that I'm looking for at 9 for sure.
Well, he's just such a do-it-aller. Like, you see what Zach Bond did with the Eagles. That's exactly what you're going to get at Jahad Campbell. You're talking about a guy before he got hurt, ran a 4.52 40-yard dash. He had 5 sacks for Alabama, led the team in tackles for Alabama, was actually not bad in coverage. I mean, look at his performance against LSU. 10 tackles, 2.5 tackles for Wash, 1.5 sacks, and a forced fumble.
Yeah. That's
against LSU in Tucker Stadium.
That's a day. That is a day.
So that's my.
No, but you're right. If he was fully healthy, he is a blue chip, do it all type player, and that's I can see that. Okay.
And I think he's like the two different styles of linebackers here, but I think he's the Jalen Smith of this draft because Jalen Smith, he was supposed to be a top 10 draft selection until he got hurt. They knew he was going to miss his rookie season. Drafted by the Cowboys in the second round, and for that first 3 or 4 years of his career, he was a top 10 linebacker.
Good player, yeah, absolutely.
Like I said,
freak athlete, absolute freak athlete, yeah.
Eventually, his knees eventually tore out, but I think you have a potential here, Jahad. I don't know what his injury is. I should did some more research on it, but they're expecting him to come probably week 6 or 7. Right? Maybe at the start of the season if he progresses well. But that's my sleeper. If he's there at 40, you pick him. Even a guy like me who's so gun ho, I would take him over Jalen Milroe.
On our mock drafts a couple weeks ago, we both had Campbell, I think, at 40. Yeah. So 100%. If he's at 40, he's a fucking steal. Absolutely. Like 40 is an absolute no-brainer. This offseason been reality TV. Yep. One of the Saints to draft Jalen Hurts that year. Load up as much as possible. And Randy, that's what it's all about. And that's why it's a great transition here. If Will Johnson not there at 9, I'm just and again, the Saints are not known for doing this. The Saints haven't done this in a long fucking time. I'm such a big proponent of just trade back, acquire more ammunition, more bodies in the building, right? Just more chances to land some hits. And if you trade back into the 20s, then you could get a guy like Campbell, right, that has this injury. Or you could get a guy, let's talk about these corners here that you and I were talking about pre-show. Barron out of Texas, or my big sleeper, Trey Amos out of Mississippi.
Which you got a coach that you hired on the staff that used to be Barron's coach and Mickey Joseph, and he also went up against Trey Amos as a competitor at Ole Miss. You're talking about Barron.
Those are still day one starters, and you're filling your biggest need, and you're doing so moving back and getting more ammo. And that's,
You're talking about a guy who brought home the Jim Fulp Award as the nation's top defensive back in 2024 for Texas. He was a homegrown talent for Texas coming out of Austin, Texas. I mean, you're talking about a guy that started since 2022. So 2 years it started. His breakout performance came out against Georgia, where he had 2 interceptions, and he's prescribed as an elite playmaker, which is exactly what we need on this defense. We need somebody to replace Marshawn Lattimore, who was also sort of that playmaker. Somebody also to replace Paulson Adebo, who was starting to come on as a defensive playmaker, getting interceptions and being, sneaky good in that department. You're talking about a guy who had his senior year, 67 tackles, 5 interceptions, and 11 pass breakups while playing outside and in the slot. You're talking about a guy who may be just as good as Will Johnson, Nick. And if you trade back and get Barron, maybe at 15, 16,
it's a good win. The cliff, the difference between Will Johnson and that next crop of corners isn't a wide range. So that's what I mean. Like if he's gone, if 9 just isn't there, if no one meets, again, my favorite word, the value of the 9th pick, let's trade back and acquire some more, man.
So he's got 3 player comps right here. One of them plays for the Saints right now. Number 1, 82%, Roger McCurry, played for the Titans, was a great slot corner, also played outside for Tennessee. Kool-Aid McKinstry plays for the Saints. Now, most likely our number 1 cornerback going head into the season unless we draft a Barron or somebody else.
And you don't want we need to fill one of the 2 starters that we're down at corner. Like that's the biggest need on the team to me.
And number 3, which is this must be his ceiling. So Roger and Kool-Aid is his floor, right? Which is a good floor to have. His ceiling, it says right here, is Patrick Surtain.
Oh, hey, whoa!
If you get
Patrick
in, and you trade down to the
you trade down and get Patrick Surtain. Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Then we have arrived.
Absolutely. So trade down. You can also think about. And I know we got Brian Burris, but we're moving to a 3-4. You're going to have bigger defensive line just because you're only going to run 3 defensive linemen. So you're going to have to add another Brian Burris, right? What about Walter Nolan out of Ole Miss? 6'4", 296 would fit perfect in this 3-4 scheme. You're talking about a monster here, dude. You're talking about a guy who ran a 4.95 in the 40 with his size. He's projected to go first to mid. He had 1,241 college snaps in 35 games. You're talking about a guy who's compared to Fonte Wyatt, Tyler Davis, Levi Onwos, plays for the Cowboys. So he just He just resigned with a big contract with the Cowboys. But you're talking about a guy who put up together a dominant senior campaign with 17 sacks and 33 tackles for loss while leading this is in high school. This is his senior year in high school. 17 sacks, 33 tackles in one senior year in high school. Went to Texas A&M as a true freshman, and then he transferred to Ole Miss. He got consistent All-American honors, racking up 14 tackles for loss, 6.5 sacks. So it's just crazy. And total sacks in his career is 52 sacks and 120 tackles for loss, which is crazy. So
collegiately?
Yeah. That's collegially his whole career.
That's fucking crazy. those are some big numbers. God,
you're gonna need another big guy, and I know we got Devon Godshaw. I know that, but to have more guys to rotate in. Look, I know we're gun hole on getting the corner here. I know you're gun hole and getting the corner, but
that's just the biggest need. I mean, it's just
the Saints are gonna have to draft whoever they think is going to pop off because we desperately need more talent. And you get a guy like Walter Nolan next to Brian Blueries, you rotate Godshaw. He doesn't have to start. I mean, you still got Cam Jordan who, he's probably going to open up some rush lanes for our pass rushers. And, I mean, it only sets up your linebackers and your edge rushers when you have an elite defensive line in a 3-4 defense. Because just look at the Eagles and what they have. You got Carter. You got all these other guys. They were so dominant. Like
Steelers in years past.
Steelers with Cam Hayward and T.J. Watt and so on. Truitt, whatever you say his name.
Mm-hmm.
So we're thinking trade back if Will Johnson's not there.
I think that's ideal just because if Will Johnson's not there, to me, it's trade back because, again, the gap between Johnson and this other crop of corners isn't huge. You're getting ammo and you're still getting your number one cornerback. And to me, cornerback is the position that I'm going for because, like you said, or like we said, Lattimore you traded. Paulson and Debo, you lost in the offseason. We got to replace two starters there. And you have at least three of them on the field at all times, if not a fourth, the way the NFL is today. It's just the biggest position of depth and just so happens to be the biggest position of need for the New Orleans Saints.
Brian says Mike Green out of Marshall, defensive end edge. I think this is his career total. I can't tell if this is his career total or this was 2024, but 17 sacks, 3 forced fumbles, 81 tackles, 38 tackles for loss. So that must be career. He ran a 4.5, 740 time, 6'3", 251. I mean, I think he's a solid candidate. But you're talking about a guy who consistently keeps going down draft boards. So you're talking about a guy that might fall out of the first round. You could probably get in the second round because, you're playing this game, Ryan, where you said this in previous shows, we end up drafting another Marcus Davenport or somebody out of Canada. You know what I'm saying? So
small school USA or Regina, Saskatchewan.
Wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with that, but you got to be mindful that we have went this route because this is quite similar to like a Peyton Turner, Marcus Davenport, and we got suckered in it. So we cannot draft this guy unless it's very end of the first round or you draft him at 40. I don't think you should draft him at 9. I don't think you should draft him in the top 20 if you trade down. If you like them, trade back into the first at 31st, 32nd, and you get them. But anything over that, I think you let him. I think you let him slide. Like you can't risk him being your first pick of the draft. You got to go out somebody who has played against high level competition, and it's a guarantee is going to produce right away because that's what we need, point blank. So,
yep, day one contributors, especially in the first 2 rounds. No
and I'm not I'm not saying Mike Green wouldn't. It's just there's a reason why he's steadily dropping. Because he was as high as 9. We were mocked to him as 9 at the beginning of the offseason. Mel Kiper had him at 9 to the Saints. Wow. He steadily has dropped since then. He's been one of those guys that has dropped almost to where he might not go in the first round because there's been too many better prospects starting to move up. So somebody's got to slide back down, you know? I'm trying to think who else.
Especially if these quarterbacks all go in the first round, and plus some of these running backs too that maybe shouldn't. Yeah, you'll see guys like that slide into later rounds
for sure. But I mean, I think that pretty much covers the defensive prospects. We can probably move ahead unless you got anything to say about it.
No, I think everyone's if you've been watching out the dome with us since we've been back. I mean, I'm pretty much been Team Will Campbell from the get-go, and just that's who I have my chips are in Will Campbell basket. And these other corners, if you can move back and maybe acquire
Will Johnson.
I'm sorry, who did I say?
Will Campbell.
Campbell, not Will Campbell. No, yeah, not the line. Will Johnson, sorry. Look, we've been on for an hour and a half. Sorry. Yes, Will Johnson, cornerback from Michigan. That's been my guy from the get-go. But again, if you can move back and get a guy like Barron or Amos and fill that same position where the fall off isn't too far, and add some more picks to your stash, I'm certainly all for that.
For sure. Let's switch on over to Pelicans. Our first time truly talking about the Pelicans in NBA here. Nick, I have not watched a lick of NBA basketball because I just feel like the product has been so terrible the past 2 or 3 seasons has taken a dip. And
the NBA as a whole or the Pelicans?
Oh, just NBA basketball, period. And the Pelicans are just the cherry on top, you know? Used to, the Pelicans suck. I'm able to watch some other game. I was like, God damn, this is a great game. Or, like, for example, when the Warriors were in their prime, that was good basketball.
Oh, 100%. Absolutely.
Right. They were pretty much, in my opinion, the Warriors kind of started something that would kind of, once they got out of their prime, kind of made the NBA worse as far as gameplay and how players play in today's age in so-called positionless basketball. My thoughts on the NBA, and honestly, I'm about to let you take over because this is what you wanted to talk about, but let me just give my 2 cents for 1 minute here.
Go ahead.
This is my problem with the NBA. Like, it's too much of a players' league for one.
100%.
You see,
100%. I mean, 100%. Absolutely.
They do all this investments overseas, which, yeah, it's paid off with your Giannis, Jokic, Luka, whatever. But what happened to American basketball? What happened to Team USA? It's just the development in your own country, Nick.
The rest of the world has caught up, and we saw that in Olympic basketball. I mean, there's some, there's some good teams coming.
It's bad. They did all this investment overseas to promote NBA basketball and just basketball, period, and not realize it's having a damaging effect in your own country. Just like, and I hate to get into politics, but it's just like politics when you go support some other country and you're not worried about your own country. And I don't want to get into it, but it's just like that. And then number 3, NBA, if it wasn't for your big market teams, there would not be an NBA. If it wasn't for the Los Angeles Lakers, who they literally let Luka get gifted to, like, there's no fucking way the Dallas Mavericks thought it was a good idea to trade Luka for anybody. Like, for anybody in the league, in my honest opinion. Like, maybe Jason Tatum. I don't, like, still, it wouldn't have worked out. Like, what are you thinking? Luka your entire team for the next 5 years was based around Luka. There's no reason Luka should ever been traded. Unless if he was injured and now he's injury prone, but he wasn't. I mean, you're gifting Luka to the Lakers, and the NBA allowed it when the NBA, and I know this is a different commissioner here, blocked CP3 to the Lakers, which Adam Silver. Adam Silver here, man. Like, I hate Adam Silver, and I hate him more than Roger Goodell. And Roger Goodell is probably one of the best commissioners in all.
Roger Goodell is the best commissioner. Thank you.
Based on business.
That's Saints fans saying that, bro.
Yes.
The NFL is king. NFL is king under his watch. Like, stop. Let's call it what it is.
Yes. It's just sad to see that Adam Silver ruined what David Stern has, maintained. I understand, as people get younger and you start to get into new age basketball, you have to change some things. I understand that. There's some things that Adam Silver has done well, but what he has done is made it too much of a players' league. Like, it's a perfect segue for you to go ahead and start your rant, Nick. There's no reason a guy like Mike Malone, no matter what the fuck issue they were, having in Denver, there's no reason a guy like Mike Malone should have ever been fired. In the NFL, a guy like Mike Malone would be with that team for a decade. It's that's what's wrong with the NBA. It's like, okay, what, now you want Jokic to go coach the team now? It's just like, you might as well, because you're paying these players so much money and all this stuff, and they're the reason why the NBA is successful, because it's such a players' league. You might as well just let the players be the coaches now. Simple as that.
Well, I think the AAU ruined basketball. You're not wrong there, Ryan. Piggybacking off the Dallas Mavericks point, it's disgusting. That's a team. That's an NBA Finals participant, and now all of a sudden, Luka being out of shape is an issue. Like, what are we talking about here? But I think and the Phoenix Suns fall into this with their new owner and the way that they've kind of ruined that franchise too. But I think in the NBA, the problem is in the Pelicans, and I think maybe Ryan will agree with me here. The Pelicans, because he's a well-known, massive Pelicans fan. There's a plethora of terrible ownership in the NBA. There are ownership groups that have no business being involved in professional sports. And you have that. And honestly, I'm sorry to say, Gail Benson should not own an NBA team. The Denver ownership group, awful. They're well known for not. You have the best player in the league, and you have maybe the worst bench in the league. It's and you're not even in the second apron. You know what I mean? How is that even possible? You have to maximize a fucking talent like Nikola Jokic, right? Like, the fact that they have just put garbage around him. And then you have, I think in Denver, the big, from what I've read anyway, the big back and forth, the big power struggle was the GM, Calvin Booth, wanted Malone to play these younger guys that he's drafted, whereas Mike Malone is more beholden to like a Russell Westbrook type, who, by the way, I know you haven't watched a lot of NBA basketball.
He's been playing well. I saw him.
What's that?
He's been playing well. I have seen him.
No, he hasn't. Don't look at box scores. I'm telling you right now, you cannot find me a worse player in the last 4 minutes of any basketball game than Russell Westbrook. Awful. He is awful. In the fourth quarter of games, he is atrocious. But so that was a power struggle, right? The GM wants the younger guys. The coach is, more trustworthy of veterans who've been around. But just to not capitalize there in Phoenix, to mortgage your entire future for a guy who, couldn't be happy if you made him king of the universe and Kevin Durant. Like, there's just no finding happiness for that guy, right? You have Bradley Beal, who could give a fuck about whether he's playing or not, coming off the bench or not. He said, I got a no trade clause. You ain't trading me. I'm going to keep showing up to sunny Phoenix, Arizona and collect my checks. Basically, for more or less, I'm just trying to, basically give a summary of kind of how he's been. He's had some quotes, man. Go back and find some Bradley Beal quotes over the last month or two. Hilarious. But it's just bad ownership groups. And then in Dallas, Mark Cuban sells the team. There's a lot of talk of, this team they're reported to have lost like $1 billion in value with moving Luka Doncic. And I think that's because that's a team that wants to relocate. There's been a lot of talk about that. Bill Simmons, a lot of podcasts been talking about they're kind of a candidate. That's an ownership group that maybe wants to get out of Dallas. I'm not sitting here saying that's going to happen. That's just an ownership group that's been linked to want to move the team.
Which is crazy.
There's a lot of bad ownership in the NBA. I think that's a huge issue. That's a huge issue that probably doesn't get talked about a lot. And yes, again, Gail Benson should not be owning an NBA team. It's terrible. It's not conducive to being successful. I'm sorry. But I think the season's too long. I think my number one issue with the NBA is the season's too long. 82 games is fucking absurd. 82 games is absurd. You should play every team once and then teams in your division twice. You know what I mean? Or it should be, the game should be in the 50s or 60s. 82 is just absurd. 82 is crazy. You have a lot of players like Kawhi Leonard only plays 30-some games, or look no further than our beloved New Orleans Pelicans with Zion Williamson. You know what I mean? If these seasons are shorter, it's less stress on these bodies. Because let's face it, these are bigger, better, faster, stronger athletes. It is more stress on their bodies. And you see Kawhi Leonard's playing awesome now. He finally does look healthy, and that's why I think the Pelicans can't move off Zion Williamson. Because if you ever just get a fucking full season of that guy, oh my God, he's going to terrorize. He's going to be an MVP. He's an MVP of the NBA. He's an MVP of the league. Zion Williamson is that good. He is that kind of talent. And you can't trade. Let's get this out of the way. I was going to kind of circle back to this later, but let's get this out of the way. As frustrating as it is, and trust me, there's no one more frustrated than maybe me. I basically boycotted the Pelicans this season when they started the season with Brandon Ingram still on the team. It was absolute malpractice by David Griffin to not have found a solution to that in the offseason, but to even have waited that long. They let their 49-win season last year fool them into believing that was the right core to have. But you can't trade Zion Williamson, because if you even get 82 is crazy. Back-to-backs are stupid. Completely agree, Ryan. Back-to-backs are absurd. Flying to a different city and it's just insane. Anyway, you cannot trade Zion Williamson, because if you even just get one healthy season, you're not going to get near value back at this point, right? The time to trade him was 2 seasons ago. Right. But you're past that point. You're not going to get even close, remotely close to fair value for a talent like Zion. So you basically just have to keep biting the bullet, especially like we've talked about with the Saints. I can't believe fucking Justin Reed signed with the Saints. We don't get players of that caliber. It took his family talking him into wanting to go back home and play for the hometown team, the team that he grew up loving and cheering for, to get a guy like Justin Reed. Right? Safety from the Chiefs. The Saints don't get those kind of players. Just like the Pelicans don't. I mean, you get a guy like Zion, the Pelicans are even less incentivized to trade him, because when's the next time we're getting a guy like that? Right? You basically got it. Just like when you got Zion, you got to hope and you got to pray that the first overall pick in a draft falls to you. And you know what I mean? And the Pelicans have done a lot this season. They basically tanked the wrong way. They were horrible at tanking this season. Right? We don't say tanking really exists, but in the NBA, maybe it kind of does.
In the NBA, it does.
The Pelicans won some games post All-Star break that they had no. I'm just like, why? We were on a show. It was maybe our third show back, and I had the Pelicans playing in the background. I said, "Oh, and the Pelicans are getting murdered right now. And then we get off the show and they end up winning. And I'm just like, why? Why the fuck are we doing this? Like, why is this happening? Just tank for a top, right? Be in that top 3 where they all have equal odds to get the first pick. But just back to problems with the NBA. Like Ryan touched on, the back-to-backs, the 82 games, it's too much. The product is terrible. I can tell you growing up. Now I'm quite a bit older than you. I'm maybe 9-10 years older than you, but growing up, watching NBA on TNT was appointment basketball. When you had teams like the 2002 Sacramento Kings, the 2002 Lakers, right? Like, just there was Steve Nash and Dirk Mavericks, were Michael Finley, right?
I remember those
was another like, just the NBA is just so different now. There are some league pass teams that I do enjoy watching. The Timberwolves jump out to me with just Anthony Edwards. I have watched a lot of Anthony Edwards this year. He's, just a phenomenal talent. Oklahoma City, but the Oklahoma City Thunder, and I don't know if you can bring up the final standings here for the East and the West, but my preseason pick is who I'm sticking with, and it looks great. I think the Thunder and the Celtics are going to meet in the finals. But you talk about the Oklahoma City Thunder. What was their final record? Do you have the final records? I know you have the seeds right here, but do you have the final win total?
See, NBA.
What did they win? 65 games? Something? 67 games? But my point is this, I guess. It doesn't really matter what the final number
68,
is.
68.
They won 68 games. And you look at that team, and yes, they have Shea Gilgeous
more than the second place team.
The Rockets, who are really fucking good this year, right? And I'm going to piggyback with the Rockets on what I'm about to say here with the Thunder. In the NBA, we act like coaching does, and it's going to go into the Michael Malone and Taylor Jenkins firings. Everyone thinks that coaching is less than in the NBA or unimportant or doesn't matter or not a big deal. It absolutely is a big deal. You have to get a group of 12 grown men of varying ages, right? With the Oklahoma City Thunder, a lot of them are young, but with a team like the Rockets, you have guys like Fred VanVleet and Steven Adams, but then you also have guys like Jalen Green, so the age range is a little more varied. You have to get that group of 12 to 15 grown men that make way more fucking money than you do to buy in on a night-to-night basis with maximum effort. And like Ryan is, Rockets have the best coach in the league. They don't have the best talent, but Ime Udoka got those guys playing the right way. 100%. Coaching absolutely matters. And the Thunder's coach is escaping me right now, but you talk about Udoka. The Thunder or the Rockets were onto something to end the season last year. We kind of, like, okay, I see what's happening here. I like the way that their team's trending, but then you add Ime Udoka, boom, that's exactly what they need. Effort alone will win you 44 games in the NBA. Effort alone. Just playing hard on a night-to-night basis. Look at the Thunder's roster. Yes, they have Gilgeous-Alexander, maybe the best scorer in the league, the best one-on-one scorer in the league. And, and you can say foul baiting, blah, 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 whatever. But that guy's dropping a smooth 30 every single fucking night. But outside of that, is Jalen Williams can he really be the second best player on a team? I don't know. No, he's probably not the best second option in the league. Chet Holmgren has some injury concerns. Good player, but, okay, is he the best second or third player on a team? Probably not. They have a lot of good players, but not great players around Shea Gilgeous-Alexander is my point. But they play hard every fucking night. Every night they are dogs on defense with guys like Jalen Williams and Alex Caruso off the bench. And God damn, they have another young guard too.
Lou Dort.
I wasn't even thinking of him. Lou Dort, Defensive Player of the Year candidate. Thunder has the best roster construction in the league. Presti is what Griff wanted to be. No, and their GM has done a great job constructing that roster. You're 100% right. But they won 68 games, not because of their talent, but it's because they bring their fucking lunch pail every single night. And that shit matters in the NBA. And the same with the Houston Rockets. Hard-nosed defensive team. You know what I mean? A lot of nights they're lucky to break 104 points, right? They don't outscore you. But they
Isaiah Joe?
Isaiah Joe, no.
Or Wiggins, Aaron Wiggins?
Aaron Wiggins, but there's another one too, I think.
No. Carson Wallace out of Kentucky?
Kason Wallace, thank you. Kason Wallace is exactly what I was thinking of. Thank you. Kason Wallace, yep. Just that's a team. You know, you see like teams like the Knicks, right? The Knicks have to play the Knicks basically have to play their starters. And I know Tom Thibodeau is a fucking psychotic maniac, but they basically have to play their starters 40 to 43 minutes a night. You see like Josh Hart plays some games. Josh Hart and Mikal Bridges, they've had games where they play all 48 this season. Like that's absurd, right? Especially, you know, when Ryan's saying back-to-back and 82 games are a huge issue. But the team like the Thunder don't have to do that. You know what I mean? The Thunder are so deep. The Thunder are like 10 deep, like 10 legitimately deep. Even going into the playoffs where you typically really ramp down the number of guys you play on a night-to-night basis. You know, you might only play 7 guys in a playoff game, maybe 8. But the Thunder can go 10, 11, 12 deep. And you know, and the Rockets have some depth too. But it's just coaching absolutely matters. And the Denver Nuggets, right? We talked about their cheap ownership, for lack of a better way to put it. That team isn't. Can you pull that back? Would they finish fourth? Would they win 48 games? Would they 48 and
which one?
The Denver Nuggets.
Yeah, they were 50 and 32.
They won 50 games, 50 and 32. The Denver Nuggets are not 50 wins talented, even with the best player in the league. They're not. That roster is awful. Awful. Who's there? Jamal Murray is like a shell of his former self. You know, Aaron Gordon, I was never high on. Now, he was, you know, 2-3 years ago when they won the championship, he was kind of that missing toughness piece that they needed.
Michael Porter.
Michael Porter Jr., like, you know, kind of just a 6'10" chucker on the wing, like, you know, I mean, never saw a shot he didn't like type of player. Just these are not high level play. And then you look at their bench, like you're talking about, you know, Christian Brown having to rely, and he's steadily gotten better, I guess. But you talk about having to rely on guys like Russell Westbrook to play crunch time minutes for you. Awful. That's a recipe for disaster, and it often has been. So this is a team that won 50 games, and they were like, I think they were awful to finish this. I think they were maybe like 4-10 in their last 14 to finish the season. And they still won 50 games.
They were 5-5 last 10.
5-5 in their last 10, but I think it was pretty bad before that though. But so in like their last 15, they were not good. But 50 wins with that roster. I'm sorry, that's Mike Malone. Like, what the fuck are they doing a week before the playoffs start? Firing a team. A coach that gets that roster to the fucking home court advantage in the first round? What the fuck are we talking about? What more do you expect? If there is that power struggle, which has been heavily reported that there is between himself and Calvin Booth, the GM, if that really is a thing, which it sounds like it was over the last 2 years, then who the fuck is Calvin Booth? Get rid of the fucking GM. There are like 5 good coaches in the NBA. 5 difference-making coaches in the NBA. And Mike Malone was one of them. It's absurd. And maybe the players, you know, had grown sick of his message because now, to be fair, I will be fair. He also is a guy that's not afraid to kind of call his players out in post-game press conferences, which I can appreciate. But, you know, to a professional athlete on a night-to-night basis, maybe that isn't an irritant that isn't accounted for. But I'm just I would murder. I would actually Yeah, I would kill another human being to have Mike Malone replace Willie Green. Like, yeah, that's how rare it is to get a guy like that. Like, like just a difference make an Ime Udoka, the Thunder coach. Just, even Missoula, who got to, with the Celtics, who got to sit behind and learn for years behind Brad Stevens. Like, those are guys, they have their team bringing it every night. And you could point to the Celtics, maybe they went through a couple stretches where, it looked like they were just kind of coasting, getting ready for the playoffs. Would that team still win, right?
61-21.
61 games. And that's a team that you would expect, they won their championship. Maybe they're going to have a small decline. You win 61 games. Like, your coach has a strong message. Your coach is getting, you're asking a guy who gets paid maybe $3-4 million a year to ask guys who make 30 to 50 to bring it on a night-to-night basis, right? You have to have the right coaching matters in the NBA. Coaching matters at any sport at any level. I'm sorry, it just does. But coaching does matter in the NBA, and I can't stress that enough to where, and you look at the Memphis Grizzlies with Taylor Jenkins. Let's not far be it for me to forget about him. We complain about Zion Williamson not being available. Low-key, John Morant doesn't play either. Can we just talk about that? John, for whatever reason, whether it being suspensions or, under the radar injuries that aren't reported as heavily and, not to pun Zion's weight, but as heavily as Zion Williamson's injuries and being out of shape is reported. But the Grizzlies are without John Morant a lot. So Taylor Jenkins and what they were the second seed, 2 seasons ago? Or back-to-back seasons they were the second seed? Come on, man. You can't. There's something to be said about Mike Malone and Taylor Jenkins. And what do you think is going to happen? Those are both playoff teams still. Well, you think a new guy is just going to come in and and lead a playoff charge? Man, it's just not going to happen. And I think it's not going to happen because you're replacing a highly sought after coach. But it's also not going to happen because the West is just so goddamn fucking tough, man. The West is so tough.
And you're talking about a league that's also thinking about bringing in 2 expansion teams. So you might have that shot where the Pelicans move to the East, possibly.
I love the time I've spent as a New Orleans basketball fan, right? I used to watch all 82. There was 5 seasons in a row in my 20s where I watched all 82 games. I was locked in. Anthony Davis Pelicans with Holiday and
Ryan Anderson. I love Ryan Anderson.
Ryan Anderson, Tyreek Evans. Those were my squads, man, right? When I was
even fucking Ashik.
Ashik, right, no doubt. I used to have a different love, quite frankly, for a different NBA. The NBA is different now, and it can't be 82 games. It can't be back-to-backs. But it's just so deep. Even if the Pelicans, even if you were to get a full season of healthy Zion, right? And Trey Murphy comes back from his injury, right? And same with DeJounte Murray, right? Who had an early season injury, but then came back and then had a regretful middle of the season injury when the tank was, in my opinion, already on. Should have never came back. But regardless, even if all that helped, and you're still getting your 20 points a game from CJ McCollum, right? Still hitting 3 or 4 3-pointers a game. Even if you get all that, the Pelicans still aren't a playoff team. They just aren't. The Western Conference is an absolute bloodbath. You know what I mean? We're talking about a team who's going to be playing in the play-in in the Sacramento Kings this week. They were just a 2 seed 3 seasons ago, right? I mean, it just fucking the way it. And a lot of their roster now. De'Aaron Fox is gone, but you still have Domantas Sabonis. man, the reality catches up to you quick in the Western Conference. I mean, you look in the Eastern Conference, a lot of those bottom teams are bad. But in the West, you got decent teams playing in the play. You know, and it's
How did the Heat still make the play-in?
that's right. Right. You look at the Eastern Conference. I mean, the Heat were bad this season, dude. The Heat were awful this season, and here they are as what, the 10 seed, getting a
37 and 45.
Come on, dude. A 37-win playoff team.
And then the 11th best team in the Eastern Conference only had 30 wins.
And what are the 11th best in the Western Conference at?
Let's see.
It doesn't matter, but the point is, of all the playoff teams, you look at. I would honestly say after the Pacers in the Eastern Conference, you have like the top 4 teams as even a realistic chance to do anything in the playoffs in the East. And maybe, Randy, always a good feeling when you hit on the 6-man parlay. Always a good feeling. I'm familiar with always a good feeling. Love that feeling. But you look in the Eastern Conference and you're talking about Boston. This is in no order because unless you want to bring that back up, but talking about Boston, Cleveland, the Knicks, and the Pacers. I would say those are probably the only 4 teams that have a realistic shot to do anything of substance in the playoffs. But honestly, maybe the Knicks and Pacers are even being generous. It probably is just the Celtics and Cavs. But I mean, look at, dude, you're talking about a team with LeBron James, Luka Doncic, and who I think is the best third banana in the NBA, or third, you know, or whatever you want to refer to as the third best player. But you get what I'm saying. Austin Reeves, man. The biggest problem I had with the Mavericks making that trade, and I was less critical of it than most, because being a fan of a team with Zion Williamson in it, I get being frustrated when your superstar player comes in out of shape and overweight, which it's well reported that Luka Doncic did season after season. So trust me, I get it. I don't have as big of an issue with him being traded. It's A, they didn't contact the rest of the league and get correct value for him. And B, if you're going to trade him to the Lakers, to not get Austin Reeves back in that trade, you fucking idiots. What the get? That dude is an absolute goon. Austin Reeves is
a dog, bro. Dog.
He's so fucking tough. Man. He's so good. He is
Honestly, he's the only reason why to watch NBA basketball. He's literally he reminds me of old school basketball. What we would see back in the day, like your Manu Ginobili's, people like that, and like.
But a team with LeBron James, Luka Doncic, and Austin Reeves on it is a fucking 3 seed. Like that's not even a top 2 seed in the West. It's crazy, man. It's going to be. Look, you got the and the Clippers. I talked about Kawhi Leonard being finally healthy. They could make some noise in this, man. The Clippers and the Timberwolves, like, do not sleep on that. The Lakers do not have an easy. The Lakers do not have it easy in the first round. Like Anthony Edwards, this is his time to really shine. I would say this.
I think the Lakers could go all the way. I think they are. I think that's just how the league's shaped.
Well, they could, based on when you have that kind of star power. Yes, you could.
I mean, Luka just made the finals. Like he literally just made the finals.
Right, but the Lakers are so soft on the interior. A team with, if you can get. I know Julius Randle. I fucking hate watching that dude play basketball, and his playoff resume is terrible. If you can just get decent Julius Randle for a series, right? And if Rudy Gobert can be effective,
I hate Rudy Gobert.
Nas Reed, who I want that's my big
that's
target.
A dog. LSU.
LSU. That's my big target for the Pelicans. That's who I want the Pelicans to get in the offseason somehow. Nas Reed is like the perfect modern day center. The Lakers don't have an easy first round matchup with these Timberwolves, man. Anthony Edwards is an absolute dog, top 5 player in the league probably. But the Clippers with a healthy Kawhi Leonard, right? With a James Harden playing very good basketball. A Norman Powell, who was a 20-point per game scorer this season with Kawhi Leonard missing a large chunk, kind of had to be, and he's always been he was a big time scorer with the Toronto Raptors even. But maybe my favorite player on that team, Zubac. dog, man, putting up 20-20 games, just absolutely dominating the paint, dominating the interior. You know, and that's a team that's probably going to pull an upset on the Denver Nuggets, in my opinion.
I think a team to watch out for. I think it's just going to be Lakers Celtics. This is how the NBA works.
You think the Lakers are going to get bought? Wow.
Yeah,
Okay.
I mean, and it'll be LeBron's last season. I think if he makes the finals and if they win it, this is it, and this is something he could cherish with his son. Whatever. Apparently, he got his first start tonight. But truthfully, a team to watch out for the West right now, and this will make one of my friends happy here, but because he's a Rockets fan. But the Rockets, I mean, is a team to really watch out for. And you know, you're talking about one of the younger teams, not the youngest, but one of the younger teams. You know, Jalen Green is finally.
Their stars are young. They got guys like Fred VanVleet and Steven Adams that probably skew their overall age. But their stars are young, no doubt. Yep.
Yeah, you got Seguin, you got Tari Eason, and the list goes on. Fucking Thompson, who's a dog.
Oh my God, the Thompson twins, dude.
That's the team to watch out for the West. And
I think in years to come,
very well against the Thunder. I think they beat the Thunder like twice this season.
I think come playoff time, come playoff basketball, they're probably another year, and certainly I think they need to add another piece, right? I think
they're OKC of last year.
I think with another year under their belt, they'll look even better. But to me, my prediction, Jackson Hayes playing third. Well, he doesn't play 30 minutes a game, but your overall point is right. And I think bigger teams are going to dominate the Lakers in the playoffs, and I think that's where they're really where their weakness is going to show. My prediction before the season was the Thunder over the Celtics, and I think that's still how it's going to play out. I mean, I think Boston will get back. I think they're gonna edge out Cleveland in the East, but I think that hunger and the way that, man, just with the intensity and the defensive pressure that the Oklahoma City Thunder play with on a night-to-night basis, I think the Celtics winning it last season and that hunger that the Celtics had last year that the Thunder possess, I think that's going to carry them to their to an NBA championship.
Well, I'll tell you this: if Kawhi does play the playoffs, you might be on to something with the Clippers because, don't
count out the Clippers, man. Do not count them out. They got the right kind of. They got decent depth, and just like when you're talking about a scorer like Norman Powell, right, who's an absolute microwave, who's like your fourth best player. Yeah, I mean, you can definitely because you can do something with that.
Because truthfully, I'm just looking at teams who has that.
Zubac, man, Zubac is like he's a candidate for most. He's a candidate for most improved player in the league, man. He's a candidate for sure.
Well, I'm just looking at teams who has had players who, you know, won NBA Finals or been to NBA Finals. You know, Kawhi Leonard is definitely one of them. He knows how to win one. The Lakers, obviously, with LeBron. Everybody else is like, yeah, SGA is like a top 5 player in the league, but he's never been to finals, and he might be like, you know, this era's James Harden. You know, like, yeah, James Harden's been to NBA Finals as a 6th man for the Thunder, but when he went on his own with the Rockets, he never went to that top echelon. But yeah, he might be an MP winner and might be a top 5 player in his league, but there's just certain players who can't just get to that top level, like, you know, LeBron knows how to do, like a Kawhi Leonard knows how to do. He's done it with the Spurs. He's done it with the Raptors. Or, you know, you go to the Eastern side. The Celtics has been in it ever since Jason Tatum's rookie year. I mean, like, you know, like, and I wouldn't put much stock into the Bucks or Nuggets, who are two highly similar teams, because the roster suck, and you're going to see
I'm so out on
this year.
So out on the Bucks, it's scary. I'm so out on the Bucks, it's scary. Nope.
Yeah, for sure.
No way.
So,
and similarly, like you said, the Nuggets in the West, out. Couldn't be more out.
Yeah. So, in my opinion, if you're betting on who's going to make the finals, you got to go.
Bring the bracket up again. Let's go matchup by matchup, and let's predict this.
You got to go with experience. Let's see. All right, let's go. So let's start with the Eastern Conference. We got Bulls versus Heat. I'm gonna go with the Heat right here, even though they don't got anybody.
I'm gonna go with the Bulls. I'm gonna go with the Bulls. Josh Giddey and Kobe White have been hot. I'm going with the Bulls there.
And then we got the Magic and we got Atlanta. I think I'm gonna go to Atlanta.
That's tough, man. That's tough. The Magic, if you catch them on the right night, they have a lot of what I talk about, bringing it, the efforts there every night, but they're just so fucking bad offensively. I guess I would give a slight edge to Atlanta and a guy who I hated to see go in the DeJounte Murray trade for the Pelicans, and Dyson Daniels, who is a most improved player candidate for sure.
And then, Trae Young always balls out in the playoffs. Always.
So that's fine. Atlanta.
So that leaves what? The Heat plays the Atlanta, and then
I said Bulls. I'm going to go Bulls, but that would mean the Bulls or Heat would play Atlanta. Yeah, that's
confusing, isn't it?
No. So if Atlanta wins, they're in. If you win the play-in of the 7-8, you're in. And
so
then the loser of that gets a second game to play the winner of 9-10.
Gotcha. Right.
So let's say this. So we both think Atlanta is going to be in. Okay, so they're in. Now, I think whoever wins, let's just call it Chicago. I think Chicago would beat the Magic then at that point. You know what I'm saying?
I would go the Magic over the Bulls or the Heat.
You would? Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
And then so now
the Cavs and Celtics both move on in those matchups, right? That's easy. Okay.
Yes. Pacers, Bucks. I think we would both go Pacers there.
Pacers 4-2 at worst for the Pacers. The Pacers are gonna. There's gonna be a playoff game where they win by 30. There's absolutely Pacers all day in that series.
So we both go Pacers. Knicks, Pistons. I'm going Pistons. I like what I see out of Cade Cunningham, bro. And Jalen Doran and Isaiah Stewart and the Thompson brother, Well,
I'll tell you what. I think an underrated and under-talked about part of that roster is Malik Beasley for Sixth Man of the Year. That dude is a huge reason why the Detroit Pistons are so good. But I hear you. And they're a nice story this season, but they're not on the next level. And if they can muck it up and maybe make it super physical and the NBA somehow allows Isaiah Stewart to be a complete fucking sociopath like he can be, then I don't know, then maybe you get Towns ejected for a game or two. I don't know. Some crazy shit is going to have, there's going to have to be some kind of Malice in the Palace level fight where there's just ejections and important players missing from the Knicks or something like that. But I just don't see any way that the Pistons can beat the Knicks over the course of 7 games. So I'm going to go Knicks.
So that puts the Knicks playing the Celtics, right? And then that would put let's be honest here. Are we just picking Cleveland and Celtics in the Eastern Conference Finals?
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. To meet in the East, absolutely. And right now, I was just worried about the first round matchup. So we don't even have to, because I'm not sure. Does the NBA reseed, or does it stay kind of bracketed how it is? I think it might reseed, where the highest seed always plays the lowest seed.
Yes.
Okay. So no, but I think it's gonna come down to Cleveland and Boston, and I'm just gonna go Boston's experience, having been there. And we talk about Cleveland does have a hunger, but their roster is just a little more inconsistent on a night-to-night basis than I like. Evan Mobley's been great. He's also a player for a candidate for Most Improved Player of the Year. Kind of living up to his draft hype when he came into the league.
Darius Garland.
Darius Garland. I like Jared Allen. I like a lot of the pieces. I like a lot of their bench pieces that they have too. But I'm just going to go with Boston's experience and having been there. And I think a key piece for Boston is Kristaps Porzingis. I mean, when he's on, dude, he's such a difference maker for that team. Just a 7'2" sniper
from half court.
Yeah, I mean, and have 7'2", can shoot from Cambridge and fucking protects the rim. That's I'm always here for a guy like that. And I think Oklahoma City kind of has a similar thing like that with Chet Holmgren if he can stay healthy. But yeah, so I'm gonna go Boston, and that was my preseason pick. Boston to be in the NBA Finals once again.
And I think that's the consensus pick amongst a lot of people. I think besides if you're a Cleveland fan, like I think Boston is the clear-cut favorite just because they're just so good. I mean, yeah, they're the second seed, but it's just like you said earlier, Nick, like they just coasted by. I mean, Jaylen Brown, Jason Tatum, and that whole squad, Porzingis. I mean, it's just too much to handle, and there's a reason why they dominated last year and won the NBA Finals. And yeah, I mean, I think we're both in agreement. Celtics NBA Finals.
When Drew Holiday is like your seventh best player at this point, it's patently absurd. It's just absurd. Right. That's an embarrassment of riches.
Okay. Well, let's go Western Conference. I think we'd be both in agreement that the Kings would win, right?
Yes, but that game's going to be closer than you think. I tell you what, man.
No Kyrie Irving, though.
It doesn't matter. Dude, Dinwiddie and if PJ Washington can have another little playoff run like he had last year to help get the Mavericks to the finals, that's not what you think it is. Again, I talked when we were kind of breaking down how loaded the West is. Yeah, the Kings were like a 2 seed a couple years ago. But man, this just
like the beam.
Don't let that fool you into thinking that game is going to be a cakewalk.
Well, don't they have Zach LaVine? Like,
well, LaVine, yeah. Well,
they got more of a complete roster.
They have a nice little NBA 2K roster. They lack a competent real life NBA roster, in my opinion.
But I'm going Kings.
They probably will win that game, and we can agree we'll go Kings, but that's not going to be as easy as I think that maybe you think it's going to be.
Well, and then I would go Warriors over the Grizzlies just because, like, yeah, talent-wise, I would go Grizzlies. Man. But it's just there's something about Ja Morant that just gets a little too cocky about him and like some of the nonsense he does, which I don't mind the nonsense he does, but I just think you're going against the Warriors that you're going to be sleeping on just because they're old as fuck. But you're talking about Stephen Curry, Draymond Green. They still play like it's 2015 and 2016, like not produced wise, but they still put in the effort. Like they're still championship team. So you're going to get every bit of effort. That's going to be a nasty game between the Warriors and Grizzlies. And I'm going to pick the Warriors just because of the experience. And I think Grizzlies is going to be humbled. And then the Grizzlies will play the Kings, and then the Grizzlies will beat the Kings.
Right. So I was just going to say, so regardless of who you think is going to win between the Warriors and Grizzlies, I think we can both agree those are going to be your representatives from the play-in games.
Right. Warriors, Grizzlies.
Yep, that's fine.
And then I would go on to say that the Rockets and Warriors, because the Warriors would go to 7 seed. I think that would go 7. But I just think the Rockets are just too young. Udoka is such a great coach. At this point, I would put Udoka over Kerr by a mile these days. And I think it will still go 7 because I think the Warriors are going to try everything they can just to make one last run, just squeeze every bit of juice of that core they've had for so many years, and it's time to let go. But this is like Reggie Miller at the end of his time with the Pacers. They're trying to squeeze every bit they had left, and they just couldn't do it. It's the same thing with the Warriors. So I got the Rockets in 7. I think OKC sweeps the Grizzlies.
They're going to smoke. They're going to smoke the Grizzlies. I agree.
They're going to smoke the Grizzlies. We don't even know if John Morant's going to even play, just because he might get in some shit and be suspended for the
even with them. That the Thunder are just on a different level than the Grizzlies. So, we're in agreement. I don't know if the Warriors can go to 7. I think that they're probably just a little too old at this point. I think Jimmy Butler is not the same player. A good addition for them, but not the same player that he once was, even in recent history with sending the Heat to the finals.
It's the effort. It's the effort, and they're just gonna play the Rockets like it's their NBA Finals because they know they're not gonna make the NBA Finals. So they're gonna play the Rockets, a young upcoming team with a top 5 head coach who has a big head right now at the number 2 seed, and they're gonna give them everything they got.
Mm-hmm. Okay, well, we're in agreement. Regardless of how it gets there, we got the Thunder and the Rockets moving on.
Yeah.
Yep.
And then we got Clippers Nuggets. I think Clippers sweeps the Nuggets.
There's our first upset. Yep. Clipper. Oh, sweep. I don't know about. Well, I'm not going Jokic sweep. I'm not going that. But
I'm going sweep.
The Clippers are going to win that series. The Clippers are going to win that series.
If Kawhi plays, Harden's plays, it's going to be a sweep in my opinion. If they don't, if they somehow get injured again or whatever, yeah, it'd be more of a series. But if Harden plays, Kawhi plays, and they're on it, it's going to be a sweep. Lakers, Timberwolves. I got the Lakers in 7.
And I was just going to say, I think it goes 7. I think it goes 7. And I think the Lakers probably will find a way to get it done at home. But I agree. That is going to go 7 games.
It's going to be a good series.
It's going to be a good series for sure.
JJ Redick's first series. He's a rookie head coach, right? He's still a rookie head coach?
Oh, yeah. Yep.
So this is his time to really prove what he has as a head coach because you're going to have to game plan for Anthony Edwards, one of the best players in the league. Yes, he doesn't have much help. Yeah. I mean, he has Julius Randle, but I mean, let's be realistic here. I mean, when you got LeBron, which I know he's 40 years old, but he's still, he's still LeBron. You got Luka. You got Austin Reeves playing like an all-time high here. Luka alone, bro.
And you're right. And the Lakers will find a way to advance, but it's gonna be a dogfight.
Didn't Luka alone beat Timberwolves last year in the playoff series?
Say that again.
Didn't Luka alone with the Mavericks beat Timberwolves last year in the playoff series?
Honestly, I can't remember exactly who played who in last year's NBA playoffs, but look. The Lakers have the star power to where they'll probably find a way to get it done, but don't count out Anthony Edwards, man. This kid is so special.
He is. So I mean, we pretty much on agreement on all 4 teams here. So that means OKC would play the Clippers, and then the Lakers would play the Rockets. I would have the Lakers over the Rockets in Game 6, and then I would have
that. I agree.
I would have the Clippers in Game 7.
No.
That's my upset right there. So you got Clippers and Lakers, Battle of LA, bro.
Wow, I mean, that would be. That would be appointment. That would be close to appointment television, but
you already gonna know the league's gonna push for it, dude. They're gonna do everything they can. They're gonna have the refs on those 2 teams' side. You gotta remember the Clippers are in the new arena now, so
I'm pretty well bought in on the Thunder. So I can't get there with you with the Clippers over Thunder. But
I don't think the Thunder even made the Western Conference Finals last year. I think they lost in the second round as well.
Who did the Mavericks play in the Western Conference Finals?
Let's see.
This is great for our listeners here.
Yeah, I mean, yes. Look, Ryan says this here. It was Mavericks T-Wolves last year.
Thank you, Ryan.
Yeah, and the Mavericks beat the OKC in the second round. Timberwolves beat the Nuggets in the second round.
Yeah. Okay. Yep. The Timberwolves Nuggets series. I remember. Yep. I can't get off the Thunder. I mean, and that's even me saying I'm impressed with what a healthy Kawhi has meant for the Clippers and Zubac just absolutely taking his game to a next level. But the Thunder are that team, man. The Thunder are that team for me.
And okay, so you're Thunder Lakers, right?
I am Thunder. Thunder Lakers. Yep.
And who you got winning out of those two?
Well, I think I spoiled it earlier by saying I had the Thunder beating the Celtics in the NBA Finals, so I got the Thunder over the Lakers. I just think it's the Thunder's the effort with which they play, the depth with which they have, and like I said earlier in the show, when your depth shrinks in the playoffs, I think this is the rare team where they still can go 10 deep, or a lot of teams don't do that in a playoff game. So I just think that the way they're going to be able to stay fresh and just the absolute dogs they have on their team defensively, and then the unstoppable scorer in Gilgeous-Alexander. I think this is their year.
Well, I got Celtics Lakers. I think the Lakers beat the Clippers in the Western Conference Finals in Game 6.
That's what the NBA wants. It was talking about what the NBA wants. That right there, Celtics Lakers. That's exactly what the NBA wants. So you're onto something there.
Well, that's not only what they want in the Western Conference Finals. That's what they would want in the finals, the Lakers and Celtics. I mean, like what I just said when we first started talking about the NBA. I mean, the NBA relies on big market teams like Boston, Los Angeles, who's been the top two teams in NBA history. And then, maybe throw in a little bit of New York, maybe throw in, a little of these other Philadelphia when they used to be good and not even relevant now. But, they rely on these big market teams, But I got Celtics beating the Lakers in Game 5.
Huh. Okay.
And the Celtics continue their dominance. So,
okay.
But yeah, I mean that pretty much halves it.
You have Celtics over Lakers, and I have Thunder over Celtics. So.
Yep.
Okay.
Well, is there anything else you'd like to add, Nick, before we got out of here? 2 hours and 26 minutes.
Well, what I would like to add is if you're still with us 2.5 hours in, and you're
some real ones, bro.
Appreciate you. Clearly, Ryan still is. Jerry G, let us know if you are Randy in the chat. But if not, I know we went long tonight, but hopefully, I think all our segments were well. I think what Bob came in and offered on Derek Carr was valuable, and the draft's almost here, man. I'm excited. This is, if nothing else, there's never a dull moment with the Saints, right? So,
right. Well, we'll see what happens. We had to make up for not showing up last week.
And we weren't on last week, so we had to get some. We had to get some of this out of our system a little bit. So,
right. Sports.
And we're gonna go to the store and give me a cold drink. And when I get that cold drink, I'm finna bust it down.
Catch you on the flip side. Thank you, Jerry G. Thank you, Randy. Thank you, Ryan. Thank you, Rose. Thank you for everybody. Joe Smith, the new guy. Thank you for supporting us here at Athlon Sports. Well, we do it here every Sunday, and we'll be right here.
Bitch, I'm finna go to the store and give me a cold drink. And when I get that cold drink,